Hey, good evening, everyone. Welcome. Let's talk too. Tonight we have a good show planned. Um, I'm not going to lie to you guys. We had some issues the other day when we tried to do a show. One of the things that we always want to do is try to get people to understand that we don't own these platforms. And if we want to continue to say that we're the new black media, part of the new black media, we need to be able to be in position to own our own platforms because censorship is real and it would be a crime for us to be not vigilant on this issue and to keep minimizing why we need to have and own our own platforms.
Yes,
Good evening,
sir.
Dr. Short.
Good evening. That was really scary the other day, brother. And that was a rare victory. They've gone back 3, 4 years to say I did something 4 years ago that they need to silence me for.
You
They
know
go,
the,
they,
the,
they go
the
out of the
ama-
way. There's no statute of limitation for censorship.
exactly the amazing thing about when you first told me to appeal it, I'm like, I'm not going to appeal it because I know how they do. So then the next day, that next morning when we talked, I appealed it while we was talking, and
Yes.
they tell you, give us 48 hours, and we got off the phone and they sent the appeal back immediately. Like,
Because I told you why. There's a black box warning on that particular pharmaceutical that says it's carcinogenic and it's deadly. I didn't say anything that hadn't been established by the FDA. If the highest people that certify it, if I'm repeating what the science says, how am I wrong?
yeah,
How were we wrong to do that? What it really shows is that every single solitary thing that I say to you, they're on top of. They're like ready to to shut it down. They don't like what's being said. They don't like people like thinking. There's a very good movie called Fahrenheit 451. I know you're familiar with that film, right?
hmm
And it's a film where they're just burning all the books. They want people to be stupid and superficial. You can be in the dirty reds and all that kind of stuff or whatever. She's nothing sexy about her. She's trashy. I'm glad that they doxed her and put that trash out on her, shut her up a little bit. All they've done to her is what she's been doing to millions of young women that look up to her, for her to get a taste of her own medicine. But in Fahrenheit 451, 451 degrees is the temperature necessary to burn books. And they just went around destroying books and arresting people. They didn't want people thinking. The crime in that society, in the science fiction dystopian film, is thinking. People that read and think are the problem. If everybody was just stupid, if everybody just thought about sex and food and watching with the woman, everybody's on drugs and everybody's just doing the same thing. And they all had these plasma type television sets, remember, in the wall, and you just watch it and you just talked about food and celebrities. That's the kind of world they wanted.
and Dr. Short, the funniest thing about what you're saying, and it's not funny, but even in their propaganda, they got a lot of people thinking, "Oh, this stuff is just coming from the right side of the aisle of politics." When in all actuality, knowledge, information, and you know resources is being censored by both sides.
Both sides. So I want to shout out to all 44 people watching. We'd like for the 44 of you, thus far, 12 of you, I'm sorry, 22. 12 of you have liked it. We hope the other 10 will add in. We need people to tweet this around and share it around, text it around. We want to thank you. One of our last videos reached 3,000 people in 3 days, which is
hmm
good. Our goal is not just numbers, but quality. If you haven't subscribed to the Let's Talk 2 channel, we have 996 subscribers, and we know that they take some away, and we know that they don't want him to get to 1,000. And I've refused to abandon this brother until he got to 1,000. I'm going to keep my word. I'm going to put my own channel on hold until I get him to 1,000. And then we're going to continue to work together. And we're going to bring some other people on there, people who reach out. Let's see what we can do.
Yeah,
But
we definitely for those in the chat and as well as those who will watch the playback, we definitely have some good things planned in the works. I know as individually, it's some things that I want to say to Dr. Short privately. I think that Dr. Short has. Sometimes we have to allow our elders, for lack of better words, me calling Dr. Short an elder. We
oh
have
my
to allow,
God,
we,
I'm not that old.
we have
Damn, I can't make people stop.
we have
I
to
mean,
allow
give me
them to
some
teach.
grease and formula. Give me something to dye my hair. I am not an elder. I'm not even 60. And you know what? My friends in the 80s, you need to stop those dumbass young people from calling you an elder. If you are not an elder, you don't qualify. I've had people go off of me and say, you blame it like I did it. You need to make them get that word out to them. I can't make people not call me an elder, any of that. I've not done that, okay? It wasn't me. So when people say that, I've never called myself that. I never even imagined being called that. I think I'm too young. There's so much stuff I haven't accomplished, right? So that's me. But people insist on using that. Please, anybody out there saying he ain't an elder, you didn't hear me say that. The doctorate I earned, I know I got that, and they didn't want me to get that. But I've never said elder. I mean, maybe my mom's an elder. Maybe, maybe my grandfather's an elder. But whew, Lord,
I like to thank the people that have sent me cash apps, sent me one of the ways to donate is buy me a cup of coffee, and I like to publicly acknowledge Julian Hayes, who sent me some things that I could do to help relieve the pain in my back from the sitting posture. Not only do I sit a lot when I'm here in front of the computer, but also sometimes at work. So I really appreciate it, and that's what it's all about. Like I said, we love to say that we're B1, we're FBA, and it's about what we're trying to do. But we have to be true to our word with that. We have to be true to it when we need each other for resources, need each other for what we would say connections, because there's no reason why we should have to go out of us to provide for us. One of the things that we have learned when it was segregation, or lack of better words, that our community survived. We survived, and then a couple of our smart minds decided to say we wanted to be a part of the larger society, and history has shown us that we've been getting our ass kicked ever since.
mm. And you know what? We didn't decide. There was a coup. No one's ever really talked to us as a collective and said, "What does Black America want?" Those people aren't doing that. The Boule, nothing is democratic in our community. Everything is top down. It's a small group of people that impose stuff
Oh,
on
so,
people.
we implement, as Reagan used to say, trickle down politics.
And trickle down is what you do when you're at a urinal. And that's how it feels.
Trickle down, and like Dr. Short said, in our community, unfortunately, historically here in America, we have everything has always been dictated by those who have the elite status, or those who.
Or in service of white supremacy. Real, we don't have that. We've had individuals, small groups, but we haven't had something that says, hey, look, let's sit down and make a 20-year plan for the liberation of Black people or the changing of the condition of Black people. We don't have that. We should have it, but we don't.
And they'll even tell you to your face, they'll start off organizations. Some organizations will start off grassroots, and next thing you know, when they get to a particular status, whether
They get some grants, they get some white funding.
yeah,
Then they don't know anybody. It's like Negroes starting a church. It's a nice husband and wife doing the work for the Lord. Then let those Negroes get their first decent car that they can't afford to note on that other people are shouldering for them. Then they don't know anybody. God forbid they get a big building that people can't afford to pay their own rent and all to keep the little ugly place open. It's the same thing. We have this desire to be something other than what we are.
Mm.
I mean, I'm going to be Roman Catholic, well, I can guarantee that I won't enjoy going to church, so I won't be there too long. Or we go into something that's different to try to be away from. And you know what? I'm going to tell you something. If you look at what's going on in the world, everybody else is they're coming together in the pack. They're coming together. They recognize the power of numbers. I'm thinking about when I do genealogical, reaching out to family, my DNA matches. I had some broad, yes, a broad. I said, "Hey, cousin, how you doing?" They write me back and say, "How are we related?" When we're DNA match. So I wrote the dummy back. That's the purpose of taking the DNA test. Because we didn't know where to find people. Why why am I supposed to walk a person never seen before? There's no picture. You got all your stuff blocked. How do I know? I mean, I don't even know anything about you to be able to make a connection. And we're so selfish and self-absorbed until you're walking around, want to know who your family is, but you don't want to give up anything. You don't want to share any information. I'm supposed to just come in this perfect box and hand you all the facts you want to know about your family. Say thanks, click, and hang up. And that's it's antisocial. Now, that's not everybody. I want to do a shout out to a person that's not on this call, whose name is Trisha, my cousin, who lived on the same street my grandfather was born in 1912, and I didn't know her last name, wasn't a name I necessarily know that much about in the family. Turns out that her birth name is the same birth name as my mother's, and I got an answer to a genealogical question. The sad news I got this week was the genealogist of our family, the late brother Billy Davis of Prince George's County, died 5 years ago. We didn't even know.
Mm.
This man had been holding all the family history together. My mother had been calling, this, that, and the other. But because I reached out, and this person wasn't antisocial, when I said to her this one thing, my family's been in Maryland since the 1600s. I named that lady started writing me and says, no, he's real. They all of a sudden, she knew when I said 1600s, right? This person has to be. This DNA is, when he starts talking about that period of time, there's no way we not. So I think she may be like my second or third cousin. I've never met her before. But we need to know each other.
Mm-hmm.
We better because folks are coming for us.
Mm.
Folks are coming for us. I mean, this stuff in Ukraine and Palestine and Israel and Gaza, it's going to have an impact on us. We're being asked to choose sides. And if people should do an attack and blow up a bus or a store, 9/11 effectively was a part of killing my father. My father died 9 years and 363 days after 9/11. My father was at the Pentagon when it happened. He died just short of 10 years of it. He was in there with whatever the smoke and all that stuff. That cost me my dad.
Mm-hmm.
That my dad is, and there are many, many other people. They had this thing called VCF, the Victim Compensation Fund, that thousands of people tapped into because they were poisoned by the different things that happened, both in New York and DC, and even the people that hauled the stuff away from the World Trade Center site. The Victim Compensation Fund is a real thing. They may shut this channel down over me saying something that's a fact, but there were people impacted by poisons and toxins in the air. So yeah, that 9/11, that effectively helped kill my dad and killed other people. And there are people dying. That stuff in the air probably killed the singer Donna Summer. What happens other places impacts us here. There are people who are in the Azov battalion from Ukraine who are Nazis that hate black people, that have been giving money to white supremacist hate groups that they're allowing to come to the country. All of you that voted for Biden, okay, smart asses, enjoy your stupid choice. And they're in our neighborhood, and if they came in with guns, they didn't check them. And they walking around doing what they want to do, doing home invasions in Chicago, taking people's homes, and sometimes the police won't come. That could happen to some of us. And they're not really punishing people. An associate of mine was learning about in Oakland, where they're robbing people. These people from other places are just robbing people, stealing things from people. And you know what? Getting nominal, they won't even sentence or punish them for the crime that they've committed. They may have committed 50 crimes, and they'll punish them for the least serious of the crime and let them go, to go back out, kidnap, steal, hurt people. And when they're armed or when they're in a gang, they're emboldened. If you're hungry and on the streets and you came in with the crew of guys, you can just take stuff. People seem to forget organized crime isn't limited to the United States. There's organized crime all over the world, and all of organized criminality all over the United States within these ethnic groups. It will impact you. The poisonous fentanyl in the candy has been given to kids that die. The fentanyl that's killing people. The fake alcohol, the fake stuff that you buy. People selling unsafe food and other things. It's making an impact. And if you're vulnerable, if you're in one of those oppressed minority groups, you're going to catch some hell.
So, Dr. Short, let me ask you. You mentioned oppression. I think a lot of times people think that oppression is a physical oppression. And what a lot of us are going through is a financial oppression. And most of our money, most of our tax money is going to fund an unsanctioned war in Ukraine. And now we see what's going on in Palestine. And that's the topic of our discussion.
Yeah, it's a double jeopardy. Yeah, it's a serious double jeopardy. And we're going to pay for it. It's the American public, but in particular, people who have never gotten what they needed are going to really feel the pain of this. Because when you have a war, like what happened with the Vietnam War, Dr. Martin Luther King, whether you like him or not, said that the bombs dropped in Vietnam will explode in the ghettos of the United States. The war on poverty, the things that were meant to try to make things better, if they really meant it, maybe they didn't, but the little bit ended up being diverted to be used to kill people in Asia. Now, when people are saying we need reparations, we need restitution, we need this, that's going to go to Ukraine, and increasingly it's going to go to Israel. Someone's going to have to rebuild Gaza. The Egyptians won't let them. There's a border crossing. Gaza borders Israel, and a small portion of it borders Egypt. It's called the Rafah crossing. Egypt will not open the Rafah crossing, so the Palestinians can't leave. And of course, the Israelis don't want them. So if they're going to stay in Gaza, then if you flatten whole neighborhoods, you're going to have to rebuild. Do you think the Israelis are going to build up Gaza after they went and attacked those kibbutzes and settlements and stabbed and shot people at their little Buddha rock concert? I don't think so. I don't think you could get the cash-strapped Israeli public to want to pay for it. So they're going to pass the buck to Big Daddy Warbucks Biden. In fact, he can't remember what number to put on the check. He'll probably just say, well, 10 trillion. Is that enough? Did I say trillion? Well, maybe it's 1,000. How many zeros? 9. 12. Oh, that's a million, right? Can you imagine Biden signing the checks? So we're going to end up having to rebuild Gaza when they won't rebuild Camden. They won't rebuild Buffalo. They won't
Detroit.
rebuild Cleveland. They won't rebuild, right? Richmond. They won't rebuild, what, Dayton, right? Or Akron, or Youngstown, or Detroit, or Lansing, or aspects of portions of Chicago. They won't rebuild St. Louis. They're going to probably have to rebuild Gaza, and the public's going to pay for Gaza to be rebuilt. And it's probably going to be really nice housing at the same time that they're throwing tens of thousands of our people into the streets to accommodate 5.7. That's the lowball number that Homeland Security says. 5.7 million people are in the country unlawfully, and President Joe Biden has promised health care and housing to all of them when there are people across the country that have been on public housing rosters for decades. And my city of Washington, there are 10,000 vacant units. There have been people waiting for 20 years to get one of those apartments, and they are housing other people. And far better, there are people who are in public housing that are overrun by mice, roaches, rats. And in fact, when they complain, they get thrown out. These people are being put in much nicer places as well, being given a stipend, then being given Metro cards. They're receiving a range of things that are denied even to people who are legitimately people of age, people who are disabled are being cut. So these people in the country unlawfully can be taken care of. And my friend, don't be surprised if they don't have a whole bunch of people from Gaza brought to America as part of the peace settlement. And do people want to come here? They sure do. The United States has at minimum 250,000 or more Palestinians concentrated in Chicago, Detroit, in particular Dearborn, Los Angeles, New York, Northern Jersey. They will come, and they're going to make it nice for them. But you know what? There are generations of people here who've never experienced the assistance that they need. And people coming into the country unlawfully, who've been coming all along, they have the thing called the Office for New Americans that offers job training, help and assistance with housing, helping people with education, legal support, whatever it is that they need. And yet there are people who go through a school to prison pipeline to go to jail. And it doesn't matter whether you've committed a crime or murdered people now, just come across the border and they're going to help you. And yet a person here can get in a car with someone they didn't know was stolen, never be able to vote again, never be able to get a job or housing because they lived here because of what they look like. That's terrible. And pretty soon, a killer from Ukraine or from anywhere in the world without getting citizenship, at least in the state of Illinois, will be able to be a policeman. And if they shoot and kill people that look like you or me, brother Quentin, they'll have the police unions say that, oh, well, they were afraid for their lives.
You guys, the interesting thing about our topic, for those in the chat, is when I had a conversation with Dr. Short earlier, and I asked him, I said, how does this affect Black Americans? So indirectly, it affects us, whether we are there or not.
Directly. It's on us.
Directly. And for those of you that don't know, I'll just give a little bit of history about myself. I work in the field like infrastructure. Infrastructure, like Dr. Short eloquently just put about these various cities and how they're messed up, and we don't get the resources that we deserve, is the type of field that I work in, is infrastructure. And I don't know during President Trump's presidency, but during President Obama's presidency, they had an infrastructure inspection on all the state roads, bridges, tunnels in the country, and we failed. And that has been a talking point in these elections, as far as money. And so a lot of these bridges, and I'm not trying to scare anybody, a lot of these bridges, tunnels, roads, they're unsafe for you and I to be on. So this is the context of how they're going to and how they're allowing Palestine, the Gaza area, to be destroyed, and then you and I will be paying for it to get
While our
rebuilt.
bridges, roads, and everything crumble, while there's a lack of affordable housing here, while people are being thrown out of their homes here, I'm not saying don't help the people. Look, I'm not mad. I don't want to hurt folk in Gaza. I don't want to see folk killed. No place. You got me? No way. No how. Don't want peace in the world. Want everybody to be happy. Not against there being a homeland for Jewish people. I'm coming out front. I'm not hiding. I'm not lying to nobody. I got I, I have Jewish ancestry. I I don't want someone to come and say he's fake. He lied. He wouldn't tell anybody. See, he's part Jewish. He's got nope. I'm telling you, yes, I'm part, but I don't support injustice against anybody. I'm not fighting anybody's fight, and at the same time, I'm not justifying anyone being the victim of plight, being mistreated. I can't do that. I can't say I want people with a 5-ton bomb dropped on them. At the same time, I don't want someone's throat slit or someone coming in their house shooting because you took a refugee deal to move somewhere. I don't think anyone should have to live in fear. I don't think people should have to live behind barbed wire or be denied safe drinking water or energy or be able to have solar panels. That they should be able to have food, move around. I don't want anyone to live like that. And nobody has the right to make anybody suffer like that. There's got to be a better way. There is a better way. If people choose hate, if people choose injustice, it ultimately will come back to haunt them. The best way is to treat people with respect and dignity, to work some way out, find a peaceful way if it's possible. If you failed, you at least made an effort to treat people with respect. If you don't, uh, if you hurt people, if you starve people, if you drive people to a point where they feel they have nothing to lose, then they will act as if they have nothing to lose. You can't call a person who's being starved and terrorized a terrorist if they only do what they experience every day. You can't make it interchangeable. Something should be happening, and it's a lot of folks at fault. There's an entire Arab world with billions of dollars in Dubai, and these folks can take those people in and make it nice for them. All that oil money, the way they throw stuff around, leaving Rolls Royces on the side of the road. The Saudis, the Kuwaitis, the Omanis, they could help them.
They could
Folks
change
don't
that whole region if they wanted to.
folks don't have to be in refugee camps. Okay, let's say the Israelis are bad, they're never gonna do the right thing. Well, what is Al Islam? What is Dar es Salaam? What is the place of peace gonna do? Muslims. Okay. If those who aren't determined to get land that they lost in 1948, if they wanted to break out and go somewhere, why not hook them up? Why not give them someplace decent to stay? It wouldn't hurt. Saudi Arabia has a population of approximately 40 million people, and a significant number of those people are not Saudis themselves, but are foreign guest workers. Why couldn't they bring those Palestinians into Saudi Arabia? They Muslim. Hook them up. Give them some work. Let them help build up the country. Okay, you'd have the same religion mostly, although there's some Christian Palestinians. Let them be there. At least let them be able to move around versus being stuck. Okay, and what I'm saying there is let's just take that devil's advocate position that just Israel's never going to do anything. They're just bad. They're never going to treat the people right. Okay, then What will Turkey do? What will Syria do? What will Iran do? I mean, other than funding people getting into an armed conflict, I'm not telling people what they can or can't do. But if there were a viable, peaceful thing, in as much as you're not going to get people to just get up off of land once they've settled into it, what could be done in that vast Middle East? Egypt has land that could be developed if there was investment. Do you know 15% of the American economy is owned by Saudi Arabia? Why couldn't the Saudis invest in doing something for the west side of the Nile in Egypt and make that a place where the people that are Palestinian at least could live not too far from where they're from, climate they're familiar with, and let them at least have a chance to start versus leaving them in refugee camps dependent on handouts from the United Nations and the World Food Program and other things. This is no way for people to live. I'm not saying that people need to give up their right to want their land. Don't get me. I'm not taking sides in that. I'm trying to say for those people that want something, why not give them? Do something for them for real. There is a Palestinian diaspora where people have gone all over the world and started new lives versus fighting over land that has been taken or people were driven off of or whatever you want to call it. They've started new lives. But if you won't let them leave, you won't give them any alternatives, they're constantly reminded of what's been taken from them. Uh, they're being oppressed. They've got their issues. You got these settlers coming in that do and take and whatever. What's left for these people to do, man? Really, other than it's a primal scream for a real solution. And I need to remind everyone that in 1993, what's that? 30 years ago, Yasser Arafat. You don't have to love him. You don't have to love him. But they had an agreement where they recognized Israel. They thought it would never happen. And the Palestine Liberation Organization recognized Israel, signed this thing called the Oslo Accord. And a lot of people felt like it wasn't a good deal, felt like the Palestinians gave away a whole lot. And what they was supposed to come out of that was a two-state solution. And I don't see it as a separate state for the Palestinians. I see the Palestinians as having not made the kind of progress, given the fact that they recognized Israel, did this, did that. And instead, it seems as if things aren't moving forward. It seems as if they lost a lot. Israel got what it wanted, but the Palestinians didn't get a significant amount of what they had to have. Let me just run down. The Oslo Accord is a pair of agreements between the State of Israel and the Palestine Liberation Organization. Signed in 93. There's also a follow-up in 95. Okay, it was supposed to achieve a lasting peace treaty from Resolution 242 and Resolution 338 from the United Nations Security Council. What was supposed to come out of that is fulfilling the right of Palestinian people to self-determination. That means self-rule. Do the people in Gaza have self-rule? They don't. And we understand that there was an election back in 2006, and there was a falling out between the Palestine Authority and Hamas. And after that, it just went south. But in reality, a lot of this would have been different in terms of how the different players were. Now, let's just say this. We need to understand that Hamas was created in part by Israel. Now, there's a lot of crying, there's a lot of screaming. I'm not picking on anyone. I don't hate anybody. I'm not taking sides. I just know a lot of folks are tripping on Hamas and how bad they are. They did this, and they did that, they did the other. But if we're going to talk about Hamas, which is the Islamic Resistance Movement. This is a group that was funded and helped develop by Israel as a means to fight against what? Al Fatah or the PLO. That's what Israel wanted. They did not like. By the way, there's the same people, okay, the same people that recognize Israel is Al Fatah or the PLO. They organized a group to undermine the PLO.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But what's happened is the PLO ended up being less aggressive than Hamas. They made a monster. Okay, they did a gang counter gang thing to get these people to fight each other, to use and let's just do this real fast. The United States, Great Britain, to some degree France and Israel have all used Islamic Brotherhood or religious organizations to fight against the Arab nationalist groups, which they feared the most. They felt like the religious groups, which were less likely to be socialist or communist leaning, more adverse to relations with the former Soviet Union or its satellites, they would rather deal with religious people than people that were not religious. It's the same way following World War II. You had a thing called Operation Gladio. Let me send this to you so you can share this. And let me share this Hamas thing. So as we talk about this, we're not just saying stuff because people think we're just pulling this stuff out our kazoo, right? So I'm going to send you, and I'm just sending it from Wiki. Anybody can go on Wiki, look this stuff up. One thing that needs to be very, very, very clear that Hamas was founded at the time of the Intifada, the Palestinian revolt. Okay, the first Intifada. Yeah, that's what it says in '87. I remember. That's when the Israelis started helping this Palestinian Imam activist, Ahmed Yassin. And they had the little brotherhood called Mujama al-Islamiyah. It was a charity, okay, which came from the Egypt-based Muslim Brotherhood. Now, that same Egypt-based Muslim Brotherhood, let me send you this, they were supported by the English and the Americans. Why? They were used to fight against Arab nationalism in Egypt, and they're the ones who had Sadat shot to death. Remember that, brother? Early 80s? Sadat
Yes.
was at that thing? Okay, so these people were against the Egyptian nationalism, at least as it was done by Gamal Abdel Nasser and Sadat. And by the way, you see it in Gaddafi's Egypt, they use the people called the Salafis, the extreme Islamic brotherhoods that hated Gaddafi to take him down. This Islamic Brotherhood, these groups have always been funded by non-Islamic government groups. This is what's happening. So Hamas came out, and there's a guy, let me pull his name down, because Mohammed Morsi, he was one of that. But there's this group, I'm trying to think, there's this black Egyptian who's Qutb, Sayyid Qutb.
Sorry, Khattab, he was the educator.
Yes, he was a black Egyptian who, and they kept him in jail and tortured him and all of his stuff. Qutb and the others were funded by the United States and England to fight against who? Gamal Abdel Nasser, who came to power in the middle 50s, who was an enemy of Israel, and then in France and Britain. And ultimately, he became an enemy of the United States because he sought a relationship with the former Soviet Union, in particular, their head of state, Nikita Khrushchev, because the United States, Britain, France, and Israel were angry at him. One of the things that he did that they were upset about was in 1956, he nationalized the Suez Canal, one of the most important pieces of real estate, revenue generated real estate in the world that was co-owned by the French and the English. And Nasser, throughout his reign from the 50s until like about 71, 70, 71, he died in the early 70s, right? He put all those folks in jail, was torturing, beating their asses because they were against socialism. And it's not just in Egypt. It's not just in the Palestinian situation. Again, let us remind you that Osama bin Laden and others were funded by the CIA to go after the socialist communistic government in Afghanistan, and that happened twice. You had one that came in the 70s under the Russians, and that's what Afghanistan was about. Putting in, they'd rather have the Taliban than have socialistic Afghanis running Afghanistan. You have this ISIS group was trying to get rid of the Bashir regime, Hafez Assad, who's connected to this Syrian nationalist socialist group called the Ba'athist Party. There are two Ba'ath parties, one in Iraq, one in Syria. They've always supported the religious groups to try to get rid of the socialists. Do you recall that when George Bush was president, that the Shia Muslims rose up against the Ba'athist Party leader, the dictator, Saddam Hussein?
Mm-hmm.
I remember he massacred the people, massacred them in the masjid. This is in our lifetime in the early 90s. ISIS and the Islamic Caliphate and all this stuff, these are all funded by Israel, the United States, Britain, and other countries trying to take down the secular governments that tend to be socialistic and Arab nationalists. This happens in every place. In fact, they tried to get rid of Erdogan. They tried to, if you recall, within the last 4 years, there was a coup attempt and Erdogan cracked down in Turkey. They tried to get rid of him. They wanted to have an Islamic government in Turkey, and he crushed them. In Saudi Arabia, their brotherhood, the Wahhabists, they're kept in check by basically Saudi Arabia, the government doing a careful dance where they work very closely with the Wahhabist clergy to keep people pleased, to not go too secular. And by the way, they're monarchical. They're not socialist. In fact, let me add that dimension. You will find that the Western governments support kings or religious figures over socialist ones. So you've got a king of Oman, a king of the United Arab Emirates. You have a king of Saudi Arabia. You have a king in Kuwait. You had a king in Iran. Ever since they got rid of the Shah, the United States hasn't seen eye to eye with Iran. What Iran had that they were afraid of in the 50s, where the United States and Britain, through Operation Ajax, destroyed the government of Mohammad Mossadegh and had a coup and put the Shah back in and had Sabbak torturing people and beating people and killing people. And the people that the Shah fought against were the Iranian religious nationalists. Of course, Ayatollah Khomeini was run out of Iran. They ran him into Iraq. He was raising hell in Iraq, so they tried to kill him over there. He went to France. When Iran became unstable and the United States was concerned that the communists were part of the coalition to get rid of the Shah, who could keep the communists from taking power? Ta-da! The Islamic religious radicals. And of course, when they got in, they kicked the shit out of the Iranian Tudeh party. They did. They smashed the communists in Iran. But the government that the Iranians had under this Islamic Republic of Iran was not a government that the United States liked. And then what did they do? They supported Saddam Hussein and Iran, and they didn't like Saddam, but he was, they used Saddam against Iran. They had a bloody war from like 1980 to 1988. Hundreds of thousands of people died as these people bled one another. It weakened Saddam, but it didn't break Iran. Are you understanding me? So I want you to understand that these religious groups, you see them popping up everywhere, with the exception of Hezbollah. Oh my God. Hezbollah was started by the Iranians. Hezbollah was started by an Iranian clergyman who was Shia. And we can get into the whole Shia thing at some other point. But Hezbollah is like the only religious group that's out kicking behind saying names, other than a related Shia group called Amal, which is also in Lebanon. And that's unique because Lebanon is the only Levantine country that's on the Mediterranean coast that has a sizable Shia population. You don't have many Shia in and Jordan, Egypt. You don't have them, and you don't have many in Turkey, although you have a similar type group called the Alavi, which is sort of, they're not Sunni exactly. And of course, you have a companion group in Syria called the Alawi. Oh, we can go off and start doing this. God, I'm a Christian. I just want to talk about Jesus, but unfortunately, you got
So,
you
Dr.
need to know
Short,
something. You know, we need to know something. You need to know something about Islam. They don't just pray. They don't just pray getting down on their knees. It's deep. Islam is serious. Don't sleep on it. What were you going to say, brother?
so Dr. Short, when the way you explained it, for those that don't know, and you see how Dr. Short explained it, how foreign entities have always known how to destabilize a country or a region by basically funding the dissidents, for lack of better words. And
Or the radicals, or the
yeah,
people that people that they feel that they can use to subvert the order. And our previous conversation, when we talked about the Middle East, I want to make this clear that this so-called Middle East, which is an invention of British and French imperialism, all right, the way it was supposed to work, at least as envisioned by King, or he wanted to be king, a man who was named Al Hussein, who was of the Hashemite dynasty from the Hijaz. That's southwestern Arabia, the Hijaz Mountains. If you look at a map, it's a real place. Mecca and Medina in the Hijaz, and it runs all the way into Yemen. It's the southwestern corner of Saudi Arabia. These people made a deal. The Hashemite Saudi Arabians made a deal with the English that they would destroy the Ottoman Empire. That's the old Turkish Empire that existed from what, say, 900, no, make it a little. Let's say that they're around from about 11 something. And let me do better. I know the Ottomans were around for a while. They ended in the early 1900s. But let me give you approximate dates. Let me not play around. I know that they took down Constantinople and if 14, 13 something. Let me just do that so I have the right dates. Forgive me. You have to have this chronology together. I want to give you a good start date. I don't want to mess up. I don't want to do that. I don't want to mess up. I want to do this right.
and while Dr. Short is doing that, you guys in the chat, make sure that you like, share, subscribe. And what he's explaining, and I'm quite sure I know a lot of people in the chat have knowledge of the situation, is this Ottoman Empire held the seat of power for the Muslim world. And
Right. It was a caliphate until 99 years ago. Next year will be 100 years since the caliph, which is the equivalent of like a pope of Islam, that was in Istanbul, which used to be called Constantinople. Okay, let me give you the rise of the Turks occurred. I was right. I want to be very careful. Basically around 1300. From about 1300, this group emerged, and they were a major power from the 1300s all the way up until literally 99 years ago, they ceased to be a power. They ceased to be a power because their empire was dismembered by the same people who created the Islamic Brotherhoods. In fact, going back before, they had learned with that sodomite named T.E. Lawrence, Lawrence of Arabia and others, that they had gotten the Wahhabists, the very conservative Saudis, who had like this crazy Islam that's very difficult to live with, where women can't drive cars and stuff like that. If you got those folks set up and angry and set off and promised that you were going to give them, you're going to recreate the Arab Islamic empire, that you could get them to fight against the Turks to save French and British lives. And this is what they did. It's called diviser pour régner in French. Divide and rule is how you say it in English. In Arabic, they say use a slave to kill a slave. And America use a black to kill a black, and we fall for it, our sorry asses. So before you had these Islamic brotherhoods in a more formal sense, these things had been created. And they were stimulated, armed, educated, propagandized by people like Lawrence of Arabia, who was a British Secret Service person working to undermine the Ottomans. Now, one of the people they offered bribes and money to the Hashemites. King Hussein of the Hashemites, or whatever, Hussein, had 4 sons: Faisal, Zayed, Abdullah, and there's another one. Forgive me for not remembering the name, but he had 4 sons. And what the British had promised Faisal in exchange for fighting the Turks, he would be put in charge, because his family had historically been in charge of the mosque and of the Holy Land of Mecca and Medina, that he would be put in charge of Arabia. That would be still under the control of the Hashemites. He would have a son that would be king in Syria, Faisal. There'd be another one who'd be, and that would include Lower Syria, included Israel and Lebanon, right? So he would get that in Jordan, that'd be Lower Syria. His other brother would get Iraq, and another brother would get a piece of something else. He'd have something, right, down where Kuwait was. But it turned out the French were like, oh, hell no, with the French bread stuck all under their arm. I don't know how to eat it, right? The French poo-pooed on these different kings, and they kicked Faisal out of Syria, so he had to split it with his brother. They had to split. They split stuff up. So somebody got Lower Syria, and they split. Okay, so Lower Syria went to one brother, I think, Hussein got Lower Syria. Faisal and Abdullah split part of Iraq, and then the brother Zayed, he didn't get shit. And what happened? Ibn Saud, the head of the Saudi dynasty, kicked the ass of the first Al Hussein. So this what's his name? Al bin Hussein, the son of Hussein, and then there's Hussein, the dad. Bin means son of in Arabic, okay? So the Hashemites got dispossessed, but what the English learned, because they did pull off at least having kings in Syria, a king in Transjordan, mandatory Transjordan, which included Palestine, right? And they had successfully used these artificial kings that they paid. They didn't really have any power. They didn't really have any money. But because these people had the name Said. Now, that's a very important term you've got to get. Said. If you have Said in front of your name, it means that you're a Qurayshi. You come from the same tribe as Prophet Muhammad, peace upon him. That's an honorable thing. Whether you're a drunk, if you're nobody, if you're a Said, you're a rock star in the Middle East. Period. Because you're a descendant of the Prophet. People won't let you be a drunk. They will fix you up because you come from Muhammad's line. So these Hashemites had literally both political and religious status where people respected them. They didn't have real political power. The British and the French ran and controlled everything. And that was to steal the resources from the people because they knew there was oil there. We had this in the previous conversation. Now, understand something. Egypt, which did not have a lot.
Dr. Short, you dropped. I don't know if you could hear me. You guys in the chat, just excuse us for a second. I lost Dr. Short's volume. Hopefully he comes back. Yeah, Rodney, I know exactly where he stopped at, talking about Egypt and the Hezbollah. So when he comes back, I'll be able to put him right back in there. Hopefully, Dr. Short will be joining back with us in a second, you guys. Remember, like, share, subscribe to the channel. If you have any questions in reference to what Dr. Short is talking about in the subject matter, just put your question up and I'll put it to the side and we'll go through a questions and answers part towards the end of the show. Yeah, you back, Dr. Short.
Yeah, man, that was weird. Something came through and cleaned out my thing. Pardon me. Wow. In fact, I'm glad you sent me a link. The link you sent me disappeared. It wasn't in my text.
Appreciate all you guys that stayed in the chat. A lot of times, and me and Dr. Short, we can sit on the phone for 4 or 5 hours, you guys, with no interruptions. I had an issue with my phone service where I had to reconnect to the network, and we haven't.
I can't hear you too clearly. I'm sorry.
But lately, could you hear me now, Dr. Short?
Turn it up some more because I have to strain to hear you.
But lately, we've been having issues. Sometimes when we do shows, it'll just drop, which is crazy because
I still can't hear you.
I can hear you well, Dr. Short.
Let me go out and come back in.
All right.
Hello?
Yeah.
Okay, I can hear you this time. Man, whatever that was, literally cleared everything out of my phone. I'm not joking. So the link that you sent me to connect to, when I went looking for it, it wasn't there. So
and
I
had a feeling that happened. That's why I sent it back to you.
How is that? What took the link out of the phone?
You guys, technology can be a benefit, but it could also be some other stuff going on because we have these weird technical problems which are very strange, and they happen at the most inopportune times. So, like you said, Claude, appreciate you guys for staying with us. Dr. Short, you were at Egypt and Hezbollah, but I know Hezbollah was by Iran. Read it down.
Now, how long ago? Because it's hard for me to tell. You need to be in touch with me quickly because I'll find about 6 minutes after this thing is dropped.
Well, I got a question that'll probably start you right off.
Right.
Angry Black Man asked, "Why has the Muslim Brotherhood been so quiet?" They're not quiet.
The Muslim Brotherhood has not been quiet. The Muslim Brotherhood has raised more hell about this than I've ever seen.
In the Muslim world, I mean, if you know somebody that knows Arabic, you'll hear them say Ikhwani Muslimun. That's the same word as Muslim Brotherhood. And their belief and what they do is they, like Dr. Short said about Saeed Qutb. Saeed Qutb was considered their educator, their martyr, their leader.
He was their Du Bois. He's their Du Bois, their Malcolm X, their Martin Luther King, their Ralph Bunche, their Booker T. Washington, their Huey Newton. Stack everything up you can think of. Okay. You name it. James Cone, you name it. He's everything to them.
So whenever you see, like Dr. Short said when he was talking, whenever you see a government that has, an Islamic government that has been more secular, Islamic Brotherhood, Ikhwani Muslimun is going to have a major problem, and they're going to uprise. They're going to attack that government.
They're going to tear them down. Because it's haram. You have to understand, again, what I was trying to get to before, whoever doesn't like these, you guys need to understand that the public is not supposed to know what's going on. And so I'm not surprised at how opposed the government is to a lot of people. I mean, censorship is real. Now, let me see if I can break this down so it'll make sense. There's a thing in religion. It's called oh God, what's my tongue act? Eschatology. Wow, why did I do that? And I have good diction. Eschatology. Eschatology is a study of end times, how various religious groups see the end of an age or end times. In Christianity and in Islam, they both have an eschatological ending that have some things in common. The Christians are believing that there will be a second coming of Christ, and the Muslims believe there will be a second coming of Christ and the Mahdi, the Messiah, the Islamic savior. Both the Muslims and Christians believe the city of Jerusalem is going to have something to do with the return of their Messiah, their respective messiahs. People who are observant Muslims are far more interested in doing what they can do to bring about the return of the Mahdi than they are propping up any secular nationalist ruler or king or queen. It really isn't important if it's not the Mahdi, or at least some recognized, someone that has been vetted, that is truly a leader of the Islamic faithful. The Islamic world, for 99 years since the abolition of the caliphate, has not had a person who spoke for all of Islam. And people that are observant Muslims who are in these brotherhoods are pissed. They believe a lot of the problems in the Islamic world are because there is not a caliph. In fact, they don't want the caliph anymore. They want the Mahdi, who will make everything right. Same way Christians believe when Jesus comes back, there's going to be 1,000-year reign of peace. The Muslims believe that something for them is going to happen. And they see any of these secular governments as shirk, as unbelievers, as contaminated. Dar al-Harb, the place of wickedness or degeneracy. That's how America is seen. That's how Europe is seen. And the only places of peace are where Islam is in charge, where the people are under Sharia and under the Hadith and the proper Sunnah. That nothing else will do. Period. I hope I answered your question, brother.
And that was the question. The angry black man presented that question.
Yeah, brother, that's what they want. And trust me, they are determined to get it. And what people need to understand, that one of the major bones of contention that people feel that's in the way of the return of the Mahdi is the control of the third holiest site and city in Islam, Al-Quds, that you and I call Jerusalem. It's in the wrong hands. It's a black eye. It's like smearing poop on the forehead of Islam, that you have Christians and Jews running Jerusalem, when, as far as they're concerned, we should be lucky to pay the demi tax just to be there, because it's theirs as they see it. And so the movement that Iran is leading, which is what frightens the hell out of Israel, is that in 1979 or thereabout, when Ayatollah Khamenei became the leader of the Islamic Republic of Iran, he initiated the Al-Quds movement. The Al-Quds movement is a movement to get Muslims, regardless of their orientation or their understanding of Islam, whether it is Shia or Sunni or Druze or Alawi or Alavi or whatever it is, or what's this thing? Zazi. What's this thing that they have in Iraq? I'm forgetting the name. Um,
Zazie.
yeah, whatever you are, you Muslim need to come together and kick these damn infidels out because they have no business there. And that's the holdup on the Mahdi coming back, is that the believers haven't done their damn work. And that's what the Iranians, they're sacrificing everything, money that they could be spending on building up their country to help people who are going to take Israel down because they want to kick the Zionists out. They must go. It can't be negotiated. So if you understand anything about religion, the biggest problem I find with a lot of particular colored people, a lot of folks have gotten away from their roots in terms of meeting people who have absolute beliefs. Like there's absolutely just male and female, period. They can't see nothing else. Okay. I know folks in certain countries, if they tried to have a drag queen, these people be ready to die just to get one drag queen out of the school. They don't care. We're going to die, but we don't get that drag queen out. We'll burn the school down. We'll burn the district down. God said so, that's it. You kind of might see that in some of your Nation of Islam people. You might see it in some of your black Hebrews, Yahweh ben Yahweh, that were chopping up people who didn't get along with Yahweh ben Yahweh. When you deal with people who absolutely believe that they're doing what God wants, please don't cross them. They will deal with you, and they have no conscience to cut you up, cut your family. They will do whatever they have to. This is what the Israelis fear about not just Iran, but you have to understand the Iranians were the ones that went in there. Let me get this dude's name for Hezbollah so y'all can get his name, because he's this dude that helped start Hezbollah, was an Iranian Shia clergy. And this dude set them off. And when they didn't have tanks, when they didn't have anti-tank rockets, when they didn't have that stuff, said, you know what? We got God, and we got a life to lose for our cause. And they weaponized Islam and martyrdom, which had always existed. Let's just go back, because I got to do this so we can understand this. All right. A lot of people don't know, they don't get Islam. Let me just say this to you. Islam has something in common with Christianity, but from a different vantage point. When you talk to a Christian, the most perfect and purest point in Christianity was the first church and the book of Acts of the Apostles, right after Christ was killed. The Holy Ghost came down. People had the perfect community of believers. People did exactly what they were supposed to do. That was when it was at its purest. And over time, people have lost the purity, and you get all this bullshit. You got Catholicism and people faking when you say Japanese and Korean automobile manufacturers that you're speaking in some holy language. This kind of shit, they're not pulling this kind of stuff back then. You had to be 100% down with what is in the scripture, or you were out. They had the first ulama in Islam when Prophet Muhammad was alive, where people were doing exactly what the prophet was getting from the angel Jibril, or Gabriel, as you'd say in English. He's hearing directly from Allah how people were to live. As they would see their history, they had a perfect, growing, thriving Islamic community that had gotten rid of idolatry, the killing of little girls, so forth, so forth, so forth. And then Muhammad died about 622 AD. He got replaced by his father-in-law, Abu Bakr. He was a caliph, okay, or actually he was the head of the ulama, which is the first community of Muslims. He died 2 years afterwards. After he died, you had these different things where you had your first Islamic councils, where it's like a congress or a gathering of people, like a tribal or ethnic or religious council, to work out how people are going to live with this new Islamic religion, as well as the growing, what became the Islamic Empire. So your first caliphate, your caliphs, and it's called the Rashidun. These are the first These are the first major Islamic rulers. You had Umar. Umar set it off. He had a general under him. I mean, they didn't even have big armies. They were beating the Romans' asses. They kicked everybody's ass. Within 50 years, a remote religious sect had become a major world power and the key center of the earth where all the trade links went through. Are you understanding me? But Umar is assassinated. Umar is replaced by Uthman. Uthman gets assassinated. You get another caliph. If I'm correct, it's Ali. Ali is assassinated. And there's these fights between different people over how they're going to live out and implement this Islam, as well as deal with the political realities as they went from being a struggling religious sect to a world power and a rich sect ruling over rich places like Damascus, Cairo, Jerusalem. I mean, these people have major Baghdad. These people are very wealthy and powerful. It's sort of like a rap group. They go from struggling, then when they get big, they turn on each other.
And
What happens?
You guys in the chat, excuse me for 1 second, Dr. Short. Remember when Dr. Short is talking, and he mentions these cities, it wasn't really countries as we know it back then in those areas.
They were city-states. They were rich.
Cities were huge. Like Baghdad is huge. And it
Baghdad, Basra, Cairo, Alexandria, Jerusalem, Damascus. These were major places. Tripoli. As they grew in importance, all right? Then what happens? There are these different schools of thought. When Ali comes along, who's related to the Prophet, but not a son, there are difference of opinion among the Islamic leadership over who should succeed. In fact, there was a successorship problem from the time that Abu Bakr died to this day in Islam of who's going to follow Muhammad. Nobody was big enough or great. No one pulled off the unity and the dynamism of his leadership to create what he had. And when you put more money and more hands and more interest, okay, and you don't have the moral authority, then no one was able to fill those shoes. But people tried to. Ali, who was related to the Prophet, but was not a son, stepped up. There were people who were opposed to him. They did not want him to be in, so they killed him. His son, Hussein, tried to be, because he felt, well, it's my father's a nephew to the Prophet Muhammad, I'm in the same tribe, I should be the caliph. And they murdered him in Iraq at Karbala. And to this day, you have one of the largest gatherings of Muslims annually for Ashura in Iraq. I mean, it's almost as big as what happens in Mecca. For the Shia Muslims, go to Karbala and the other cities in Iraq that are holy to them. So the Shia have multiple holy cities. The Sunni have Jerusalem, Mecca, and Medina.
And it's very important to understand that during the time of Ali was very, very young.
He was young.
And then said that Ali had two sons. And Hussein is the one who took over, and Hussein is the one that was beheaded. And it's this is a very, very crucial time, and that fraction
has never healed. It's never healed. It's never healed. They're still fighting this. So the Iranians, most of the people in Iraq, a sizable number of people in Lebanon, the majority of the people in Bahrain, the majority of the people in the northeastern corner of the Persian Gulf region of Saudi Arabia, people in Yemen, and a significant number in India, about 40% of the people in Afghanistan. These people are Shia. And you have a big number in northern Nigeria, which is why you have a lot of fighting. But what happened, they massacred the followers of Ali, from which you get the name Shia, which means partisans or people in the party or the followers of Ali. So the Shia have multiple religious sites, but the key ones, Mecca, Medina, Jerusalem, Karbala, and the holy city of Qom, where they do their academic scholarship in Iran. But you also have important scholarly cities, places of study in Iraq. The Shia are hated. If you meet some Sunni, my God, my personal experience is that Malcolm X's grandson was a Shia Muslim who studied in Syria. When I was afraid for his life and reached out to people that were Sunni to try to help him, they refused to help because they didn't care if he died. Man, it blew my mind. To be a Shia for certain Sunni is like you deserve to die. My thing is, aren't you guys Muslim? I mean, you're reading the Quran, you're in the Hadith, you do the Sunnah, you do the prayers, the 5 pillars. And I've had someone look at me like, what don't you get? He's not Muslim, I told you. I mean, it's shirk, okay? He's an apostate, okay? Off with his head. It blew my mind because this guy is, you've heard of him. His name is Imam Johari. You know, you've heard of Johari. I know you've met him.
Wow.
Johari would not help. I look like Johari. People would confuse Johari and I'd say, no, I'm a Jesus person. Johari, we look alike, but he's a Muslim. I'm a Christian. I never had experiences where people could care less if Shia died. I mean, it blew my mind. But I could compare it to how Catholics and Protestants feel. How Catholics can kill Protestants and that people kill each other. I don't know you. Your cross and my cross aren't the same. You had this fight between Orthodox and Catholics. For example, when you had the fight in Yugoslavia, you had the Catholics and Orthodox, where people going around killing all the Orthodox. All you have to do is ask a kid to make a cross. The way that Catholics make a cross is they go top down in a cross, and they do a cross top down. If you did a cross Orthodox way, they'd kill you. That's how they knew, oh, you're not one of us by how you make the cross. Even though it's the same cross for the same Christ, you didn't do it my way, you get offed. So don't act like it's just Muslims. And other people in these religious groups, Jewish, have their extremists that don't like other Jews that they can't work with. It's real. You've got a problem. You have a problem. Okay, my cat is back, and my cat hates me doing lives. Now, they've been out in the street for months. Now they're angry. They know I'm doing a live.
Well, some may say it's strange that people would act that way. Just look at it like this: that what we consider race, those people consider tribalism, and even that with the religious fractions. If you're not from what Dr. Short explained, the Hashemi tribe,
Arabs, Qurayshi, the Qurayshi.
Arabs have a lot of tribes, tribal relations.
And they have oral histories of fights and feuds that go back a long time, and they carry this stuff on, and they don't forgive you. We do the same thing. We do it through race. Race is so unfair. Race, you can't change. The difference is that you can join a tribe. You can ultimately belong. As much as you don't like them, if you converted to a particular religion, you could become a part. The system that these devils have us under, you can never be a part of it forever because of what you are always. You're always out. You can never be in.
Ebony has a question for you, Dr. Short.
Okay, as long as it's got to be related to what we're
Ebony's
talking
being
about.
nice today, Dr. Short. She's being very
Okay,
nice.
thank you,
She,
God.
soon as she came in, she spoke and everything. You were talking. She said, Dr. Short, are there any ethnic groups or specific professions we should pay close attention to on the East who are trying to claim American territory? Mm.
I don't know how to answer that honestly. I don't know
Well,
how to answer
I
that.
can answer, Dr. Short. I don't know. We don't have to pay attention to nobody from the outside. We have a president who's a globalist. He's not about American people. I tell you that. If you consider yourself an American, he's not about putting American people first. This is a global agenda what he's doing. And if you know anything about geopolitics, global politics, you'll know why he's in the middle of everything.
Yeah, he's put everybody last, in particular black females. It's so crazy that they can't see it.
Angry Black Man said, "What kind of Muslim was Salahuddin? Salahuddin was considered Sunni."
Yes, Salah ad-Din was a Kurd, a Kurd Sunni. Yeah, he would have been from what, northern Iraq or eastern Turkey, depending on, or eastern Iran, but he's a Kurd.
Angry Black Man said, "How do you feel about the three Muslim reporters that are suspended by MSNBC?"
The ones that told the truth.
Yeah,
Well, how can I say? Well, let me say this. Who speaks up for Black Americans? Do they? So my thing is, who made a way for those people to be in television? Who fought for inclusion and media and everything else? Black Americans did. Have these people in any way shown solidarity or made any effort to even report or do things differently from anybody else? I'm not aware of it. I don't hate anyone. I don't wish ill of anyone. Um, Censorship is real. Let me just say to you, when I worked in television news, uh, one of the most bigoted persons I worked with was Arab, and their sister is big in your state of Pennsylvania. Uh, their name is Karam. I know you've seen her on television because you live in Pennsylvania. They're Lebanese. Dan Rather was an Arab, in case you didn't know that. A lot of these Arabs basically are in white spaces and get to be white people. So basically, it's white on white crime. And it's a pity that white people aren't kind to each other.
and a
How
lot
do
of
you
times,
like
like Dr. said,
how do you like
yeah,
that answer? That's white people being mean to each other, and oh well, wow,
and they
why?
will tend to change their name. For example, you guys that follow sports, the New York Jets coach, he's an Arab. He's actually from Dearborn, Michigan. So his name is Robert Sala. So know that they a lot of times they assimilate.
And they can be very, very, very terrible to our people. Like the Sununus up in I think it's New Hampshire that Sununu is from. The Sununus are Arabs. They're not kind to us.
I don't. Ebony has a question for you because I don't watch the news, you guys. It's strange. I haven't
Yeah.
watched cable news for more than 10 minutes
Well,
since Freddie
I'll
Gray.
I'll send you the link from MSNBC. I got that link from one person that told the truth. But look, let me just say this. The guy at MSNBC had to know what I knew working in TV news. News in the Middle East is processed through Israel before it comes by the Israeli defense people. They they determine what the American public can see. That's the arrangement. That's the way it is. Period. If you're the
And
mainstream people, so that's how it goes. The mainstream news, most of our news, and everything else, the people who are most powerful that I'm aware of in media happen to be either CEOs or corporate heads that are Jewish, or you have uh, what are these things? Venture funds, capital funds that have a strong Jewish, or they're outright owned by a Jewish entity. They went into media in the early 1900s because it was a place that they could get in. They went into Nickelodeons. They went into film. They went into communications because they could go there, and they are well established there, if not dominant there. That's where they are. That's where they've been. These Arabs and other people have not paid their dues. They have not built up. For example, Al Jazeera is not American based. Al Jazeera is from Qatar. These Arabs who have business have all kinds of money. Why haven't they built up a network to tell the truth of their own? Why did they think they could go on the Jewish people's controlled network and preach to them about what they already know? Why didn't they do it? And in reality, it's because, one, a lot of people wouldn't want to watch what they have. They tried that with that Black American News thing with that idiot, that Levantine Snow Queen, Mark Lamont Hill, who's on Al Jazeera. Maybe he's in the Arab dudes or something. He's always up under them, maybe more than one way. Look, and the one that said Malcolm X was gay, by the way. I worry about that, brother. Look, they've got plenty of money. The Spanish-speaking people had their own news. Lots of people generate their own news. Now, they tried to get that Black News Channel or whatever it was, a BCN Black, and it failed. They're going to put a black face and push their agenda and hide behind us. They haven't done it because, one, they would have to go out and do what Jews do. Whether you like it or not, Jews know how to make friends among people in different groups. Arabs aren't that good at that.
yeah, Saeed Khan, he had own Black News Network, and
That thing down in Florida that failed.
yeah,
They look, why not come out? See, they could have had one. If you really had a black news thing that talked about issues, and you could have weaseled it in there, but you didn't really want it to be black because you didn't want us to get anything out of it. Nobody wants to get with you. Jews know how to connect to lots of different people to get them to buy into what it is that they're pushing. The Arabs haven't bothered to do it. In fact, let's just be honest, a lot of Arabs in America are not Muslim. So you've got this major divide between Muslims who are, I'm sorry, people who are Middle Easterner who are not Muslim, who've come here to flee Islam. Okay, that's one. Then the other thing is there's a word. Let me give you guys a put down word. You know how you say coon? Coon? Can you say coon, boys and girls? What do you call a Middle Eastern coon? A Middle Eastern coon is called a hawaja. That's the sellout Arab that wants to be white. That's ashamed of who and what he is. There's a very good book called Brown Skin, White Mask. It's a Arab copy of what's this guy's name from Martinique? Frantz Fanon's Black Skin, White Mask. The Arabs follow, as much as they don't like it, black people too. The Jews are the only people that have been able to do a synthesis with black people and venture off and do their own thing. These other folks go try. People don't. The Arab stuff. It's not happening. It's not perceived as progressive. In fact, people who are Arab Christians are, they're low key. So they haven't done anything spectacular enough to make people notice them. They're too busy trying to fit in, trying to be white. So uh, part of being white is sucking up the indignities that go with being in an out group they don't like. There are enough of them in this country with enough money to stand up and fight for what they supposedly believe in. Well, damn it, why won't they do it?
Ebony asked, how do you feel about Christine Amanpour's coverage?
I don't really pay attention to her. You're asking us mainstream news questions, Ebony. Get a clue. We don't watch the mainstream news.
She
So
says
I
she
don't.
don't either. That's the funny thing.
So then don't ask me then.
Yeah, we don't.
I
We
don't
don't.
follow her. We don't know her. She's Iranian. She hates Iran. When I first came in the news, all the racist people that I work for loved her. That's all I need to know. She was going to be what folks call a house Arab, someone that would be pro European and so forth. So when you hear her talk, she has a British accent. Basically, she's a safe Arab, or no, a safe Iranian. That's all I have to say. And there are a lot of them. That's all you see is safe Asians, people that are not going to push the envelope. That's all you got up there.
And they do the, like Dr. Shaw said, they do the exact same thing that we have in our culture. They have people that they'll prop up. They have their boule
Right.
who have sold
It's
out,
all
who have
it's
tried
all
to
this
steal
it's
them.
all the same thing. It's all the same. The minute they halfway say something that's halfway real, they're gone. The only thing that they haven't had to do is be gay. Like our black folks, black man has to be gay. He can't be in front of the camera unless he's like getting hit in the booty or blowing someone off. He can't be a man, or he has to be so careful. You could be O'Reilly and other people. What's that guy who was bothering people at MSNBC? Who and they let him stay. I forget his name, but he was nasty and had a whip and dominatrix clothes on. I mean, you can't. The television stuff is compromised. So I just want to say, getting back to Israel, and I want to waste time in American news because it's empty. Let's look at what has happened. Israel made this Hamas. Hamas went rogue when they took power in a coup in 2006, 2007, and to punish them, Israel cordoned off all of that thing with this big fence to entrap them. They can't get in. They can't get out without. They're the most monitored people in the world. They've been catching hell. The Israelis, every so many years or months, go through bomb and kill and assassinate and try to get rid of the leadership. Mahmoud Abbas, as I think I told you the previous conversation, I had the chance to watch him get Condoleezza Rice to say that we need to get guns and bullets for Mahmoud Abbas to use on his own people. The Palestine Authority, the PLO, is trying to crush Hamas, which is why you don't hear too much or see too much going on in the West Bank, because the Palestine Authority is funded by the United States and Israel, and they ain't saying much. It's basically like a Jim Clyburn, Maxine Waters, Hakeem Jeffries, every kind of coon wrapped up into one person, and this octogenarian named Mahmoud Abbas, who is the person who is the successor to Yasser Arafat, who's like a complete fuck up in comparison. It's like Ralph Abernathy to Martin Luther King. That's what you have. The one thing I will say that Mahmoud Abbas has managed to do is to make the Israelis feel like there'll never be another intifada on the West Bank. Now, I need to remind you, Hamas emerged in 1987. That was the intifada. That was the rebellion where the Palestinians rebelled against the Israelis because it was the 20th anniversary of the occupation. The occupation started when Israel won in 1967 in the 7-Day War. They got East Jerusalem, which is supposed to be the capital of a separate nation state for the Palestinians, and they got the West Bank and Gaza. And with that, the Israelis began to control those people as a foreign occupying army, and in particular began to take land and other things on the West Bank and build settlements on land that they would take. Basically, they have no right to a lot of the land. They do what they have to do to take it. They can use the law. If they control the law, it's whatever they say it is. Sort of like gentrification here. The West Bank is being heavily gentrified. It used to have fewer than a few thousand Israelis living there. At present, there are about 300,000 to 400,000. Let me quickly just say to you that the Palestinians who've been dispersed throughout the region are as many as 500,000 in Lebanon, somewhere 400,000 to 500,000, somewhere 400,000 to 500,000 in Syria, somewhere between 1.8 to 2 million Israeli Arabs, Palestinians that live within Israel itself. Gaza may have anywhere from 2.3 to 2.5 million Palestinians. The West Bank has somewhere between 2.4 and 2.7 million Palestinians living on the West Bank. Jordan, which has almost 12 million people, is 70% Palestinian, although they'll tell you there are just 2.4 million Palestinians living in Jordan. That's because they don't want to deal with the reality, right? And the wife of King Abdullah, who is the grandson of King Abdullah, who was assassinated in 1951 by the Brotherhoods, because he's a monarch, a king, not a religious ruler, got his ass shot for trying to work with Israel. He was replaced by his son, King Hussein, named for his grandfather, the Hussein, who was a Hashemite who got kicked out of Mecca and Medina by the Sauds, all right? Hussein, the son of Abdullah, okay? Is married to a Palestinian. And understand something, the Palestinians tried to take over Jordan in the early 70s, and King Hussein did it like a little jihad and shot up the Palestinians and crushed them. Now, understand, the PLO emerged in the middle 60s. They got displaced. They got kicked out of Jordan. They went to Lebanon. This is why Lebanon's always been a hot spot. They've been run in and out of Lebanon. The Lebanese have an issue with them, but they're there. But this intifada came after a period where the Palestinians felt abandoned. Remember, what's his name? You had the Camp David Accords between Menachem Begin and Anwar Sadat, the head of state of Egypt. And for a period of time, my friends, nobody was really advocating anymore. Once Egypt normalized relations with Israel in the late 70s, nobody really pushed for the Palestinians anymore. Nobody. One of the things that happened, of course, when this intifada set off, which was led by, in particular, the PLO, and these Jewish kids were just rebelling, getting shot down, beaten, so and so and so and so. They ultimately were crushed, but this is when this Hamas was created. They thought that they could use this, Israelis, to shut down these rebellions. You had another intifada that came along later. It happened in the early 2000s, late 90s, 2000s. Remember, they were blowing up all the buses, and they had to do a bunch of stuff to smash and beat down and shoot, kill, and torture. And ultimately, there were attacks on Gaza, bombing and attacks and shootings all around. But ultimately, with Oslo, which occurred, 93, 95, and the Palestine Authority, effectively, the and this is crazy, the Israelis outsourced the policing of the Palestinians from their IDF and the Israeli Defense, which is the Israeli Defense Force, the Israeli Army, and Shin Bet, which is the Israeli police, which are brutal. In fact, Shin Bet trains all of the police forces that beat up and torture Black people across this country through an organization called GENSA. Let me send you something on GENSA. So you'll know that when people get beat, shot 30, 40 times here, they were trained. When they say they need more training, no, they shot you the way they were trained. They're not trying to take prisoners.
Doug Schultz, you still there? Okay, they are technology again. Engaging Black Negro was good. Yeah, we lost him, you guys. He'll come back on. He'll be back with us shortly, you guys. You want Dr. Short?
Did it cut me off again?
Yeah. You want silent when you were talking about how they were trained, and then you were on for a minute, but I couldn't hear you, and then
Hmm.
then it just dropped altogether.
See, they didn't like what we were saying. These people think that what we're doing is just a joke, don't they? Hmm.
We were talking about Jensen and how they were
Yeah,
trained. Thank
yeah.
you,
Well,
Ebony.
Gensa are the people that train all of our police chief, and people get free trips to Israel, like the doctors that give you bad or unsafe drugs, get trips to Hawaii and everything else. And you learn after about 10, 12 years later that the drug wasn't any good for you.
Yeah, then people be saying they're trained with paramilitary training. That's what we're
They,
talking
they,
about.
they do receive that. And Gensa has an office in every major city in America. What I was saying is that all of your no good, nigger, black, Democrat ruled cities, all of them send people, even some of your politicians go to Israel to learn about law enforcement and to do it the West Bank, Gaza way. So when you see the cops shoot someone 10, 20 times, they're doing stuff like they do in Israel. These people were trained to kill us. They like a country that's at war with people that they hate, the way they're bombing people in Gaza. The same mindset is what's training our law enforcement leaders across this country. And every black person that gets elected that seeks the endorsement from a police union or from anything connected to the police is signing off on GINSA. And that's why you don't have an anti-black crime bill. And the same people that support that also support Planned Parenthood and exterminating us and mass incarceration. It all works together. You have mass incarceration for Palestinians, you have mass incarceration for Black Americans. It is happening to us here. In fact, that's why we need to take care of home. Let them take care of theirs. They have like 2.5 billion Muslims to fight for the Palestinians. We don't have anybody, not even the people in Africa, for us. So I'm talking about focusing in on here. I'm not saying that everything in Israel is bad. That's not the conversation I'm having, but Palestinians get a bad deal. It's true.
One question.
Palestinians also, no, hold on, Palestinians have bad leadership. And Palestinians have not seen the kind of solidarity from the larger Muslim world around a real change. In fact, what was going on is all these countries, if truth be told, Jordan, Turkey, and Saudi Arabia and Egypt are all friends to Israel. People need to understand that the leadership of Turkey are people that come from Salonika or Thessalonica or Thessaloniki. This is the book of Thessalonians, if you're familiar with the Bible. It's Thessaly. It's in Greece. Jewish people from there are crypto Jews who run Turkey. They're called the Danme. Mustafa Kemal, the founder of modern Turkey, aka Ataturk, was a Jew. The ruler of Egypt, al-Sisi, is more than likely a Sephardic Jew, not really an Arab Jew, but not a real one. In other words, a crypto. Oh my God, the House of Saud and Wahhab, who created Wahhabism, were Jews from Iraq. Yeah, I didn't know this. There are a lot of people that are crypto Jews, people who converted to Islam to evade persecution, or they converted to Catholicism. They are called Marranos. Many of us have, when you do DNA, you end up with North African or Syrian or whatever. And why? Because you had Jewish people who owned someone in your family, they hit them up. And you have this ancestry because these people were Jews who had to lie about being Catholic when they came to the Americas. So there's another layer of what's going on, as a lot of folks are hiding. Yeah, I didn't know that Turkey is secretly run by the Dome. They are the small elite that run stuff in Turkey. They're very influential in Egypt. And a lot of people don't know that a lot of those people, the Sauds, aren't were in the past weren't really Muslim. Oh, it's real scary. It's the same way that there are rumors that the Shah of Iran and his father were actually of Jewish descent. I've been to the Shah's house, and all around the top of one of his mansions had the Star of David everywhere. And when the Shah was in, he was really tight with Israel. See, the Palestinians have a lot of stuff up against them. So I want to just go back and say to you, on top of all of this mess, remember that Israel has gone in and attacked Gaza several times and bombed and killed. They did it in 2014 for 51 days, killed thousands of Palestinians, bombed and killed. And they do it. It's called trimming the grass, where they go through and they just kill off some people and assassinate a few leaders. And every so many years or months, they have to go in and shoot and kill people to hold order. But now you have this incredibly stupid man named Joe Biden with his pathetic use pussy dealsman vice president. And that's the only way I could describe her. I don't care who doesn't like it. You have these incompetent morons who are globalists, who are corrupt, who've been bribed by people in Ukraine and China. Biden has managed to screw up so badly as to lose billions of dollars of state-of-art weapons in Afghanistan, either intentionally or unintentionally. They have sent hundreds of billions of dollars in arms to Ukraine with no monitoring of where these weapons went. And yet everyone knows that Ukraine was the epicenter of drug smuggling, human trafficking, organ harvesting, illegal drug development, biolabs, and weapons smuggling. And you send it to that cesspool, and you have an ex-pornographer comedian, Jew, running. In fact, the only two states in the world run by open Jews are Israel and Ukraine. Oh, I'm bringing it home. Oh, I'm bringing it home. And some of the founders of the Communist Party in Russia come from the Ukraine, from Odessa, one of the dominant Jewish communities in the Ukraine and the former Soviet Union and the Russian Empire's Odessa. Okay. I am the godson of Odessa Jews, something I know a little bit about. And if you hear anything about the Russian mafia, it's a misnomer. It should be called the Odessa Mafia or the Russian Jewish Mafia. The same way if you live up in New York, it's called Little Odessa, where all the thugs are. Am I right or am I wrong, Brother Q?
Right. Right.
So there's a whole lot of corruption and collusion that goes on between Israel and Ukraine, and into the world global stage enters this bumbling, dementia-ridden, potentially pedophile who would shower with his penis on his own daughter's nose, Biden, and this blowjob queen vice president. And they are complete failures. It's questionable whether they won the election or not. I've been in D.C. my whole life. I've never seen an inauguration where you needed thousands. You had more soldiers here than you had people showing up for the inauguration. What the hell was that? All of this stuff went on. And what happened back in 2014, the same year that Israel was bombing and killing people in Gaza, a very vicious Jewish woman by the name of Victoria Nuland, under the Obama government, with others, helped organize a coup to get rid of the last non-Jewish Ukrainian head of state who had a relationship with Putin, to put in the first Jewish president of Ukraine who was corrupt. There was a coup, there were mass killings, And since 2014, there's been killings, rapes, atrocities committed on both sides, where ethnic Russians have been the victims of people who are Ukrainians who were aligned with what? The Nazis. Let me just give you a quick piece of history. When World War II ended, even after the war ended, there's a post-conflict period in Russia wherein people armed by the Nazis that were Ukrainians continued to kill Russian soldiers and civilians at minimum. The ancestors of this Azov brigade killed 200,000 Russian soldiers. 200,000 soldiers in a very short period of time. That's 4 times the number of Americans that died in Vietnam in less than a 5-year period. That's how much killing went on by these Ukrainian Nazis. Under brutal Stalin, the one everybody was afraid of, they weren't. And they were helped by the CIA and others. But they killed, that's soldiers, they killed civilians too. They killed Jews, they killed Ukrainians, they killed Russians. When you see the little symbols on Zelensky's clothes and the little flag, it is their adaptation to the German Schutzstaffen, the SS, the people who killed people under Heinrich Himmler, who ran the concentration camps. They killed 14 million people, among them 6 million Jews. Biden has sent hundreds of millions of dollars to people who, historically, over the last 20 years, have been sending money and support to encourage a race war against who? Against Black Americans. These people have been encouraging white Americans to murder us in our own country. And yet you can line up the dumb fuck Black Democrats in Congress and the idiots on the news that praise Ukraine. You know what? I'm not a mean person, but it wouldn't be half bad if some Nazis supported by Ukraine fired some buckshot at some of these Black folks in Congress. It's going to take something like that for some of our folks who are betraying us. They're going to have to hurt like we are hurting before they stop doing things to harm us because they think they're going to get some crumbs. I said buckshot. And I'm not saying we do it. I'm not suggesting it. But if it happened, I bet you they get it. If some of these idiots that are talking about sending more money to Ukraine when there are people hungry across this country. My mother's a charitable giver. We get so many requests for money, for food. I mean, just the dozens, because all the charities are running out of food with all these illegals and people who lost their jobs because of the shutdown and this so-called fake-ass booming economy that Biden, this liar, this fraud, this elected, but I don't think truly duly elected president has done. What has he done? He has failed. So he has made an enemy of Saudi Arabia, America's primary ally in the Middle East, outside of Israel, to the point where these people are doing all kinds of things with oil, telling people who they can sell their oil to and trying to get the prices to go high and make it low. I mean, I don't know what he's going on with. This man has blown up the pipeline where Europeans were getting gas and fuel from Russia. And yet America has stopped exporting gas and oil because he messed that up in Pennsylvania. People are starving in Pennsylvania because of this dumbass Biden that Black people voted. 85% of us got behind this spaz, whose name to fame has been his opposition to equal education for Black people, for Black folks to be mass incarcerated, and that there needed to be repressive laws to punish Black people. And we supported him. Now he's giving money to people who encourage people to mass kill us. And they're funding a war that's depleting the Ukraine. The Ukrainians are dying by the tens of thousands. The Russians are winning. Our media is lying. Our media is lying. Russia is winning. Their spring offensive. How did it work out, people? Remember, we were promised a spring offensive, and we just keep sending them tanks. They're running out of people. They've got 11, 12-year-old boys fighting. And by the way, when the Ukrainians wouldn't let the blacks in Ukraine leave, what do you think happened to them? You haven't seen them anymore. Maybe they killed all the blacks in Ukraine. You didn't hear anyone advocate for them, did you? You definitely didn't hear Biden, and you definitely didn't hear that Jean, the one whose female husband walked out on her, his national spokesperson. The Ukraine is a disaster. There never was a nation of Ukraine. The current Ukrainian government is repressing religion. You can't really do whatever this guy Zelensky says you can't do it. He's corrupt. He's rich. He steals. All of them are stealing. The people in Ukraine are hungry. The people in Ukraine are cold. People around the world are now suffering because Ukraine's wheat and sunflower and other things aren't reaching them and their cattle. And Biden this thing would have fallen apart. Russia knows that they can't occupy Ukraine. They just want the eastern part, those parts of the Ukraine where the Russian ethnics who had been persecuted by the Nazis said, hey, look, versus getting killed with no protection from our government in in Kiev, let's go over to Moscow. At least they won't let us be murdered because we're ethnic Russians, because the Nazis, who are Ukrainians, who hate everybody, hated the ethnic Russians. You need to understand that Ukraine is about 20 to 30% Russian. Russian and Ukrainian are kin languages, and languages in some instances are interchangeable. All of a sudden, they've invented as if it's a different race of people. When if you go back and you study Russian history, the Great Rus, the first capital of Russia is Kiev, not the first capital of Ukraine. This is bullshit. I'd never heard the word Kiev and Lviv. It was Lvov and Kiev. But now with the Biden CIA and the other people, now all of a sudden you have to say stuff the way that Ukrainians say it. Nobody's used. I grew up with the Ukraine. They all spoke Russian. What the hell is this? This is the insanity and the fraud of Anthony Blinken, a crooked and wicked man running the State Department, and his ethnic group. Go look him up. Go figure. These people have put America at war. They now have us in a bad. They've created a situation where there is a civil war in Ukraine, not just in Ukraine, but a civil war in Sudan. They are creating problems throughout the world. And now Biden, who's a complete spaz, and Blinken, their main thing has been one of two things: promoting war or homosexuality, where they're putting sanctions on African countries if they don't want the people getting screwed in the behind or having sex with kids. If you want the money, you want American aid. If you're hungry, remember, they used to get their grain and all from Ukraine and their energy all from Russia, and then you try to block that up. Now these countries are scrambling to make it, and America says if you want to eat, you got to let men and boys have sex, or we'll come after you.
Get down to lay down, not just get down to bend over.
Yeah, we're going to jam you. If folks can't come to your country for sex tourism, you'll starve. What kind of foreign policy is that? How does that influence people? This is what even Obama didn't do this. As disgusting as Obama was. And I don't care if you voted for him. So what you have now is the BRICS countries. They just convened and they're moving away from the dollar. And they're tired of all of America's wars and wrecking countries, Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria, Libya. All they do is wreck places. They're wrecking Venezuela with the crushing sanctions. You're wrecking Zimbabwe. They didn't need any help in Africa to mess up. Then you add on to Africans messing up. Damn. They're already standing on a greasy banana peel. Then you go come punch them in the head. Now how they gonna stand up? You're messing with China. You're sending stuff over to Taiwan. You know that that's a bee's nest. You're playing these interesting games. You're saying to the European countries that we want you to send soldiers into the Ukraine. You made an agreement, a Minsk agreement, to not put NATO on the border of Russia. Russia, a country that suffered what? In World War I, 7 million deaths. World War II, at least 25 million deaths. The United States in World War II lost just under 400,000 lives. I just told you that the Ukrainian Nazis killed 200,000 Russians in 4 years. That's half of what America lost in all of World War II that we cry about, our greatest generation. That was on top of the fact that Russia had already lost over 25 million people in World War II. And so you get Putin, who's very popular. It is a lie that you've been hearing that people don't like Putin and Russia. What most Americans, and it's come out, the UN, one of the rapporteurs had to acknowledge that the war didn't start in 2022. The war was started by Obama in 2014. Don't you think people know this outside of America? Don't you also understand the same way the Palestinians are being messed with? Those people in the breakaway provinces on the eastern part of the Ukraine that asked to join the United States and the Donetsk River bend have been messed with like the Palestinians, and they want out. Crimea has always belonged to Russia. Always, in recent times, for the last 300 years, Crimea has belonged to Russia. Imagine if the Russians started saying Alaska was theirs. Well, since 1867, Alaska's belonged to America. America would want a war. If you said Puerto Rico belonged to Cuba, since 1898, 99, thereabout, Puerto Rico's been a territory of the United States. How is it that the United States can tell the people of Crimea that they belong to a Ukraine that wasn't even a country until 1994, 92, 94? This is these people's creative selective memory. We are familiar with it because it's how they can make you. One day you're a Lumbee Indian, you wake up the next day you're a Negro. You go to bed a Creole, the next day you wake up a Negro. You go to bed a Negro, you wake up you're colored. Go to bed, wake up the next day that you're a Negro. Go to bed, wake up, you find out you're Afro-American. Go to bed, you find out you're an African-American. Go to sleep, wake up, you're a freedman. You're a Negro all over again. Or you're FBA. These people, they change memory to suit themselves. The same way people have said back to this Gaza and this West Bank. They said it was a land without a people for a people without a land, all the while acknowledging that there were 750,000 people living on this landless, or should have said peopleless land, had 750,000 people. How is that going to work out? Like it does in America with the Indians, like it does in Australia with the Aborigines, like it does in New Zealand with the Maoris, like it does in New Caledonia with the Kanaks, like it does with the people in Tasmania, like it does when someone comes in to take And who steps into it? Biden, to send all the weapons in the world. And is it working? And we've already been told by Putin that he's not going to take nuclear weapons off the table, whether you like Putin or not, whether his name sounds like it's some back alley way of saying pussy. He's got nukes. He can fry us all. He's got nukes. He's got more than what we have. And we've provoked him. The United States in 1992 agreed informally not to put the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, which is basically America's foreign military wing in Europe. The countries in Europe are American colonies, let's face it. They're independent nominally. Proof of that is that Germany is losing tens of billions of dollars in trade. Their economy is suffering because they're not trading with Iran or Russia when they want to. Because America said. France is losing money. People are going cold. People's economies are suffering. People are furious in Europe. But because America was the leading nation that won in World War II, these countries have to do what they say. And NATO was the military organization to check Russia's Warsaw Pact, which were the Eastern European nations that Russia had in its sphere of influence as part of its payback for doing most of the fighting against the Germans and bringing down Hitler in May of 1945. America has broken all of its promises to Putin and has steadily moved countries on Russia's border to get, like the former Baltic states of Latvia, Lithuania, and Estonia, to join NATO. They got Finland to join NATO. They get Sweden to join NATO. It looks like you're trying to gang up on Russia. Mother Russia don't like to be bullied by nobody. And then Ukraine with this man who plays the piano with his penis. Oh, yes, he did. Oh, yes, he did. The video's out there. I'm not going to show it. I don't want to see it. You have this clown, this comedian, made head of state, whose major role in life was playing a president on television. And so the Russians have fought. They didn't do as well because, one, since 2014, if not before, the United States has been training the Ukrainian army to make certain that they could fight the Russians successfully. And initially, they did okay. Now, not so good. And there's no real progress. The Russians can wait them out. The Ukrainians have run out of men to die. There are people from other countries being brought in. It's not working. Russia's going to eventually win. And I want to say that the double jeopardy is, and Zelensky, that clown, is saying, don't forget me. Don't forget me, Biden. Because if they cut off all of those high-tech weapons and all, Ukraine's going to crumble. All Putin has to do is ask his buddy and Minsk up in Belarus to send some soldiers down. Russia has Ukraine surrounded on two sides, three sides, actually. They can just take it if they want to. If they really want to take it, they can. Instead, they're bleeding Ukraine. And on top of that, millions and millions of people have fled Ukraine, which is good for the sagging white populations. They're worried about all the Africans, Arabs, and others coming in. Well, now they've got more vanilla to go with their Neapolitan. It won't last. Back to Gaza. What's happening is this. I mentioned the Al-Quds movement. Well, Khomeini was replaced by Khamenei. Khamenei is now the supreme Ayatollah, the head of state in Iran, and he was friends with his former leader, Khomeini. What you need to know about Khamenei and why he will never back down is in the early 80s, well, about 1982. That's an interesting year. In 1982, a terrorist group called Mujahideen al-Qaeda, MKO, put a bomb in the political party office of Ayatollah Khomeini, and the United States proxy group nearly killed the entire leadership of Ayatollah Khomeini's political party. One of the people that survived was Khamenei, whose arm was destroyed by the explosion and he lost some of his hearing. Do you think a man can forget that America tried to kill him and killed most of his friends? That America literally had someone put a bomb to assassinate the entire leadership of a nation at one time? It's never had to say sorry. Do you think that dude trusts America? Do you think that dude can forget that Biden was a senator when this happened? Do you think that Khomeini is any less dedicated than Khomeini when he was in the war where they were using poison gas and the Iraqis were given poison gas by America and others and helped to poison hundreds of thousands of Iranians that died? He was one of the leaders of that campaign. Do you think that they give a damn about Biden? Do you? Do you think that they give a damn? Do you realize that the Iranians ultimately, through sheer will, when they couldn't get weapons from anybody to fight back as the United States poured weapons into Iraq, these people beat the Iraqis anyway? If they fought Saddam with almost nothing, now that they have missiles, Iran is in the top 15 nations in the world in terms of space and missile technology. If you understand there are about 200 nations in the world, that's not bad. And 15, with all the technology and things denied where they can't get this and they can't have that, and they've been under sanctions since 1979. The only instances of worse is when the United States had Haiti under sanctions from 1804 to 1865, which was 61 years. Cuba's getting close to it. They started in 1960. It's almost, It's Cuba. Iran comes next. They don't give a damn. They really don't. Back to Al-Quds and back to the Shia. And there's a thing called the Shia Crescent. This is the population of Shia runs all the way from Lebanon through Syria, through Iraq, and it ends in Iran. It's like a rainbow of death, and they really don't care. And it's tens of millions of them. And I want to remind you, back in 2015, when the Islamic Caliphate thought that they were going to topple Iraq and Syria, remember, his name is Ayatollah Sistani. He is the Grand Ayatollah in Iraq. Basically, he's the Pope of Iraqi Shia. He said he wanted 2 million men to go kill them, and he got 2 million men in one day. You haven't heard much about the the Islamic Caliphate. Remember, they had 2 million people. Because when the Ayatollah speaks, if you understand the whole principle of Ayatollahs, the Ayatollahs speak for God. It wasn't a man asking you to volunteer. God said, go out and kill somebody. And 2 million people says, who you want us to kill, God? And he says, go north. They didn't all have guns. Just go up there and kill someone. They all started marching. They had to find guns for these people. The ISIS and Daesh, they had weapons. These people go fight with their bare hands. Now, if they'll do that to Muslims that they don't like, what do you think they're going to do when they unleash Hezbollah on Israel? Let me just say to you, I have never seen so little news in my life when Israel's having a conflict. If any of you recall 2006, 2014, you normally get news all day long about Israel. You get all kinds of. They've been very, very, very careful this time. Have you noticed, Brother Q?
Mm-hmm.
Why are they being careful? Why is Biden's sorry ass sending the U.S. fleet out there? They've never needed the fleet before. And the last time there was an American ship off the coast of Israel, it's called the USS Liberty. The Israelis mass killed American naval personnel to cover up the fact that they were mass killing Egyptian soldiers in Sinai. And no one has ever apologized. And if you haven't heard of the USS Liberty, I think that's the name of the ship. They killed those guys. They machine gunned them. They tried to torpedo, and they were punished for not being destroyed by the Israeli Air Force and the Israeli Navy. And because America's allied with Israel and they didn't want to get mad, they looked the other way at the Israelis killing American servicemen. This is a fact. I don't care who doesn't like it. Now, moving right along. A long time ago, when we were talking about the Intifada and we were talking about Hezbollah, not Hezbollah, well, yeah, Hezbollah, but we were talking about Hamas.
And Jensen.
No, just Hamas. They didn't have stuff to fight with. They've gotten a whole new set of weapons that they used in the last few weeks. And the Israeli army is scared because if you saw those smoking tanks that they dragged the Israeli personnel out and took them hostages, what you need to understand is that the Hamas has learned the technology from the Iranians, as did the Iraqis, as did the Lebanese that are in Hezbollah, where they know how to use IEDs, improvised explosive devices that can take out tanks and armored personnel carriers, which means Israel in a bombed out urban warfare situation cannot use its highly touted Makfa tanks against people who know how to kill you inside of a tank. A IED is an explosive device that has a way of sending a molten piece of metal through iron and steel. And that piece of metal somehow gets pierces the tank, and it bounces around and it kills the men inside the tank because that hot piece of metal burns them, and it's like a bouncing bullet. Can you imagine being in a tank with a bouncing white hot piece of steel burning, penetrating your body, shooting out and hitting the next person? If the IED does not penetrate the tank, the explosion itself causes such an impact that it causes concussions to the brain. We have thousands of American men who have permanent brain damage from the impact of an IED hitting a tank. These things can be made for pennies on the dollar that can take out a $10, $20 million tank. Nobody wants to have to replace all those tanks or their crews. Israel has another problem. Let me run this down to you. Israel's population at the most is 9 million. Let me get a number. Let me get a number that they're going to tell us that they have. If Israel has 10 million people, I'd be shocked because that makes it one of the most densely populated places in the world, although it is densely populated. What's Israel's population? What's this here? I just saw something. Hold on. Okay, good. That was good news. All right. Israel, country in the Middle East. If they have 9 million people, I can see that. If they have 10, that's stretching it. Let's look up Israel. How many people in Israel? These populations change. That's why I want to tell you an accurate number. All right, give me the population. Okay, Israel's population is 9 million. Yeah, it's not quite 10. It's 9,800,000. Of that 9 million, 2 million, close to 2 million are Arabs. Okay, so that gets you down to
What? If you take that down, that's seven. Okay, you got 7,700,000, and then you got all kinds of Jews, and you got some Bedouins, and you got some Druze, and you got some of that. So roughly, you got 7.5 million Israelis that are just Israelis. Okay, or 7 and 3/4, whatever you want to.
Understand that Gaza has 2.5 million. West Bank has somewhere 2.5 to 3 million. Beirut has a 500,000. Syria has a 500,000. Jordan has about 4 or 5 million. The numbers game isn't that good if you're Jewish, and a lot of the Jewish people, they're old. You go to Israel when you retire. Israel's population isn't growing like the Palestinians who keep having children, huge families. Israel can't afford to lose lives. Arabs outnumber Jews. Muslims outnumber Jews. Every Jewish life is precious. Every Jewish male life they need. A deadly war will hurt them more than a population that is reproducing. I need to just remind you, one of the reasons that Israel's population isn't growing like it could grow is Israel's become a mecca for LGBTQ. If the guys are chasing each other, then they're not making kids.
You guys in the chat, I just want to remind you guys of something that Dr. Short said during while he was talking, when he was giving us the history of the Shia and the Sunni and what has went on within their group for the last 1,200 years. Something recently just happened within the last year. Saudi Arabia and Iraq have opened up relations.
And Iran,
And Iran have opened up relations. And
after
this is
all this time of hating each other, they're now, for the first time in like 40 some odd years, they're not hating each other anymore.
so this is the problematic thing for what's going on in that area. For
Hmm.
if you're looking at it from a pro-Israel standpoint,
If you look at a pro-Israel standpoint, Israel could always count on Saudi Arabia, as did America and other countries, for Saudi Arabia, for their monarchs to hate the monarch deposers in Iran, the Saudis to not like them. Now these people are talking and they're getting along. If you get the leaders of the Sunni Muslims to stop fighting the Shia Muslims and decide that they're tired of Israel, I need to remind you, Saudi Arabia wasn't always friendly to Israel. Under King Faisal, they were supporting actions against Israel. And then, they got Abdullah and other people that came along and they want to go along to get along. To please America, it's good for business, duh. Now, what if there's a change? You see, Mohammed bin Sultan, MBS, who's a crown prince of Saudi Arabia, is a young man. His father is old. If dude doesn't want to kiss Zionist Heine, and if he could see eye to eye with the people in Iran, my God, my God. See, Israel's been basically able to do what it could do by helping or hoping for conflicts amongst its regional neighbors for them not to like each other. To play the Christians against the Muslims in Lebanon, right? To play the go along, get along Egyptians against the folks who hate Zionism in Egypt. To support King Hussein, and now King Abdullah, against the majority of the people in Jordan who may not be favorable towards Israel. They've always needed this division to be unopposed. They support the Kurds Israel supports the Kurds. Israel supports the Kurds in Iraq. Israel supports the Kurds in Iran. And Israel probably supports the PKK Kurds in Turkey, but can't really put that on blast because the Kurds are a huge population of 40 plus million people divided between Syria, Iraq, Iran, and Turkey, some 40 million people who are in a landlocked people who live in the mountains who are not, they're neither Arab nor Iranian or Persian, right? And they're not Turkish. So they don't fit in. They're persecuted, hated everywhere. They are people that the Israelis like to say, well, the Israelis were helping the Yazidi in Iraq because the Yazidi and the Kurds are people that they can go to fight against the Sunni and Shia in Iraq. This is not working. In fact, for the longest time, under Saddam Hussein, who was a Sunni, Iran and Iraq didn't get along, but now Iraq is dominated by the Shia. Now Iran and Iraq, they see things more or less eye to eye as fellow Shia, the Shia in the majority. That's why they killed Soleimani in 2019, and they also, or 2020, one of those 2 years they killed Soleimani, either late 2020, early 2020, or late 2019, when they killed one of the head of the Iranian Revolutionary Guards, one of their great genius strategists, people, military strategist folks, and they killed a leader of the Iraqis. Those guys getting killed together actually made the Iraqis and Iranians have a deeper bond of affinity. You see an Islamic world coming together as Ayatollah Khomeini envisioned. His whole thing is, let's stop fighting each other and let's take out Israel. And you know what? No matter what happens to Iran, no matter who gets killed, no matter what's done to Iran, they keep saying, we don't like Israel. We don't like Israel. Do you realize if you're around people that are more or less like you and y'all squabble, but there's someone that none of y'all really like, but if a person refuses to fight you and they keep focusing in on the person that nobody likes, that maybe everybody eventually going to come together and jump the one person that nobody can stand? The Iranians have played a long game. By the way, Biden has let Saudi Arabia down. Under Obama, he helped them start this war. They started the war against Yemen, where some 30 million people are being starved to death. And America suddenly started holding back on helping Saudi Arabia fully fight against the Yemeni. Although recently Saudi Arabia just got a deal. I think Biden's trying to get tight with them again to let them do a $500 million deal. But for a certain period of time, Biden wasn't helping the Saudis fight the Yemeni when it was America helping the Saudis start this thing. And the Saudis have been getting their lunch handed to them by these Houthis who are supported by who? Iran. And because the only people that can really make the Houthis stop are Iran, the Iranians have one thing going for them. They got some discipline among their partners. They got discipline for Hezbollah, and they got discipline for the Houthis. The Houthis are driving the Saudis crazy, and Hezbollah's driving the Israelis crazy. And who has the purse strings? Iran. Iran's even helping Hezbollah. Hamas. Hamas is Sunni, can't even stand the Iranians, but when you're desperate, whoever throws you a lifesaver is your friend. And it's not just them. Who's providing the Russians drones and support to fight against the Ukrainians? Oh, you don't say. It's the Iranians all over again. The Iranians, by the way, are interjecting themselves into this whole BRICS thing. And they're working with the Chinese and the Russians. And now that whole Brazil, Russia, India, China initiative, where they're now looking at adding Iran and the Gulf Cooperation Council nations, these rich, oil rich Gulf nations, are all looking to join BRICS. And if you recall, because they're mad at the United States that doesn't buy Saudi oil, the Saudis are now selling the oil to the Chinese and Chinese money instead of the petrodollar. All of these things are hurting the American economy. Our dollar's in trouble, people. And so what does Biden do? He sends the Navy over to shore up Israel when the whole Muslim world and a lot of other nations of the world is saying, hey, look, let's decelerate. There doesn't need to be a massacre of civilians. We agree what Hamas did was terrible, but killing and slaughtering people in Gaza isn't the answer. The people in Gaza, the children and babies, 50% of the people in Gaza are children under the age of 18. They never got out of the barbed wire to stab you, and you're going to bomb them too. Well, we already know that close to 800 Palestinian kids have been blown up. We did hear the unsubstantiated story that there were 40 Israeli children with their throats cut. Have we heard about babies killed before? Yes. We remember the babies from the incubator in Kuwait City that the Iraqis were taking the babies and letting them die on the floor. And it turns out it was the ambassador from Kuwait's daughter lying about the babies being killed in the hospital by the Iraqi soldiers that justified the invasion of Iraq, my friends. They're trying to do this all over again. These people are so bloodthirsty that you just have to bomb them. They just have to be killed. They're monsters. Where they're demonizing these people, but we never hear about the daily suffering or issues that the Gazans face. People need to understand that the Israeli government determines how many calories people can have per day in Gaza. How much electrical power. They don't get safe drinking water. They do everything to make things miserable for the people. And who steps into this? Biden. Who's putting the American military in a region where certain countries like Syria, which is in range to fire missiles to sink U.S. ships, everybody's telling America, keep your damn paws out of this situation. Hezbollah, and let me just go into some military facts. For at least 45 years, something has existed called the cruise missile. We've had cruise missiles for close to 50 years. One type of cruise missile is called the anti-ship cruise missile, ASCM. ASCMs have been in possession of the Iranians for close to 40 years. The Iranian partners, Syria and Hezbollah, have anti-ship cruise missiles. Anti-ship cruise missiles that have been re-engineered by the Iranians have a range as far as, if not more than, 220 kilometers. There is no way in hell that American ships are going to have any major impact, even to scare people. 110 or 150 miles away from Israel's shores. They're going to want those things in closer. If they bring them in closer, they're sitting ducks for people to fire anti-ship cruise missiles. If they run any bombing missions, if they stage any raids to capture hostages, these people will feel within their rights to fire on American ships. And Hezbollah in 2006, that's 17 years ago, used anti-ship cruise missiles to almost sink the flagship of the Israeli Navy with one shot. The first time they shot, they nearly sunk the main ship in the Israeli Navy. Don't you think by now that they're not better? And after that war that happened in Syria, the civil war, this so-called fake Arab Spring, where they wanted to take down the socialists, and they've been supporting these Arab brotherhoods that the Assads have beaten down. There was an Arab Brotherhood rebellion in Syria from the middle 70s all the way up until about 1982, when Hafez Assad, the father of Bashir Assad, in a city called Hama, killed maybe 20, 30,000 Islamic Brotherhood people. He leveled the city. He killed everybody in the city to crush them. In 2015, not 2015, in 2012, these folks came back for a rematch. And the Sun has been willing to blow up half the country to show these people that Syria, which is dominated by a strange coalition of Alawite, which is a type of Shia, Christian, Druze, and some others, all work together to fight against the Islamic Brotherhoods, which is what about 70% of the population of Syria. And they beat their asses to a draw. But during this fighting, Hezbollah fought Daesh. What's this thing? The Islamic Caliphate. All the Daesh, all these different groups that were fighting to bring about the end of the government in Syria and Iraq. Hezbollah helped them crush them. And because of the military emergency that was put on Iraq and Syria, for the first time, there was a land bridge open up between Hezbollah and Iran, where all of that great technology and missiles and stuff could be brought into Syria and brought into Lebanon. And now Lebanon borders what? Israel. They've got tens of thousands of precision missiles pointed at Israel that they can fire at any time, that can hit any part of Israel anytime they want, whenever they feel like it. And they had their reasons, because the Golan Heights belongs to Syria. And by the way, Syria fired missiles either yesterday or today at Israel, because Israel bombed their airport. And Israel has been, 2 airports in Syria. Israel has been bombing and attacking Syria for years. And Syria has only recently fired something at Israel. This is the first time in years. The Syrians are tired, but the Syrians have Iranians who've helped them set up missiles. The Syrians also have the Russian SS-400 anti-missile, anti-plane defense system. They could actually give Israel a run for its money for the first time in 50 years. Not since the Yom Kippur War had the enemies of Israel been in a better position to tell them to go to hell, as well to tell Israel's main backer. This is the first time that these countries could actually hurt something that belonged to the United States, not to mention surrounding Iran and all in the regions. There are American bases in Iraq, American bases in Jordan. There's an American presence in Turkey. There's an American presence in Azerbaijan. The American presence in Qatar. The American presence all around the region, where these people could hit them at any given time. They could even hit Diego Garcia if they wanted to out in the Indian Ocean. America and Israel can take a hit. Diplomacy would be the smarter move, but again, you have Bibi Netanyahu. He is a fanatical Polish Jew whose brother was killed in the 70s with the raid on Entebbe, trying to free Jews, kidnapped by the PLO and taken to Entebbe, which is the airport city for the major capital city of Uganda called Kampala. And Idi Amin let them come in. The Israelis raided to rescue the hostages taken. And of the few Israelis that were killed, One of them was Bibi Netanyahu's brother. Bibi Netanyahu's brother is dead. Bibi Netanyahu is very close to a very important family of Jews, the Kushners, who are based in New Jersey. Uh, Kushner's son is married to Ilyana Trump, and so they're very well connected. And in fact, they still have that office building that's in 666 Broadway. Which street is it on that it's 666? But that's the building that they have. I don't know why they want that number, but that's the number that they have. Are y'all listening to me, people? Putin is angry, and Putin is an ally to Syria. In case people forgot, when nobody would get those terrorist armies out of Syria, Putin sent his air force and soldiers down there, and they stopped those people, although Trump took all the credit. God knows what kind of weapons the Russians gave the Syrians. The Russians have a lot of weapons that they have never used, as do the Iranians. When you have real power, you don't show it. That Eisenhower, or whatever that doggone ship is that they've sent into the Mediterranean, I want to say to you that aircraft carriers are technology that's 100 years old, more than 100. These people have missiles and things that we haven't even seen before. Imagine the loss of life if they even sink one of the carrier group ships. Would it kill 100 Americans? 200? If you sunk an aircraft carrier, how many thousands would die? 2 or 3 or 4,000 more than what we lost on 9/11? How popular do you think Biden would be if thousands of Americans died on one day when he didn't have to send American soldiers over to the Middle East in the first place? When he could have said, "BB, don't kill those people. Stop giving them justification." The Muslim world is saying they're not going to sit by and allow them to do another massacre in Gaza. On top of that, Biden's a liar and Egypt's a liar. If Biden told that stooge named al-Sisi to open up the Egyptian border at Gaza and let the Gazans out, they do it because Egypt is the second most provided for. It's a country that gets the second highest amount of American foreign aid in the world goes to Egypt. Egyptians eat off of American taxpayers. Egypt doesn't grow enough food to feed its 110 million people. Biden is lying. If Biden wanted those Gazans to get out, he could tell the head of Egypt, "Damn it, you're going to open that gate or I'm going to cut off your food." If you can cut off food to Uganda over sodomy, why couldn't you cut off food over peace and preventing a regional war? It's because Blinken, he's vicious. There's a whole complex, and some of the Zionists, it's called the Samson complex. The Samson complex is, if I can't win, I can bring the roof down and destroy everybody. That's a very dangerous way to act in a world full of nuclear weapons. Would you agree? So understand, Ukraine is going the way of the buffalo. These people need to distract us from the fact that the war has not gone the way that MSNBC and the Clinton News Network and the other people have told you. It's not true. The asshole Broadcasting Corporation is lying. MSNBC is lying. CNN is lying. Russia's winning. Russia's slowly bleeding. Ukraine. All the tanks we've sent in have been blown up and destroyed. I mean, if they blow up one Russian tank, it's major news. That's incredible. One tank is a major news story that says how poorly they're doing. Come on, y'all, open your eyes. They get a drone hit now and then. I mean, Russia's a country of over 5 million square miles. You get one bombing and it's major news. You get one ship when they have a fleet and it's major news. And see, what nobody's dealing with is that Russia's been saving its missiles. How many missiles? Russia has now geared up like they did in World War II. Let me give you one thing. Where are wars won, people? This is what Biden won't tell you. Biden is a liar. Wars are no longer won on the battlefield. Wars are won on the factory floor. America doesn't have the capacity to create weapons of war to fight a major war at this moment. All the jobs that they didn't want blacks and other people to have, that they sent to other countries, we no longer have the factory capacity to wage a war. America's running out of bullets and shells to give to the Ukrainians. What Russia did and how Russia beat the Germans, it's on the factory floor. The Russians produced tens of thousands of tanks. The Germans didn't produce 50, 60,000 tanks. The Americans produced 40,000 bombers. The Germans never produced that many. Wars are won on the factory floor. Ukraine has no factory capacity to operate or continue a war, nor is it counting on a country that has the capacity to give it the weapons of war necessary to fight a war of attrition in which it is outnumbered, that it is losing and will lose no matter what. We saw the same thing in Syria. Daesh and all the people that were trying to bring down Bashir Assad didn't have the factory floor to produce the weapons and arms to fight the Syrians who were being supplied by the Iranians, who built up an infrastructure to make weapons ad nauseum. So America, its war industries are in a shambles. And it's fighting people, whereas Mr. Putin has developed his war industries, its factory floors are producing. Remember, we were told last year in 2022 that Putin would run out of tanks? Did he? Remember, we were told Putin would run out of bombs and missiles and bullets? Has he? Remember, we were told he would run out of drones? Has he? We were told the Russians would run out of soldiers. There are people that hate America so much from Afghanistan and other countries have volunteered. They're sick of America. They're going to fight in Ukraine just to give America the finger. And these people in countries that are poor, made poor by the global system that America champions, things like biofood, where they started making fuel out of the food that people eat, where people began to starve, it forced the income level down to Russia, that's gotten rich off of the sale of oil, because the price of oil was forced up by the same stupid-ass Biden who cut American oil production and attacked the pipelines that were making this country prosperous and fuel sufficient. Now Russia can sell its oil at a premium. Russia has never had a better economy in 70 years than what they have right now. And the Russians can pay people who are sick of working for $1 a day or afraid of drowning in the Mediterranean trying to get to Europe, that they can fight and get citizenship in Russia, which is far better than being in Djibouti. There are millions of people that would rather sling a gun for Putin than starve where they came from. And guess who can't get people to join their volunteer army? That pedophile Joe Biden. And I want to say something to you. And I love my white American brothers and sisters. If they dare try to have a draft in America, between the people who'd like to be in the military because they could shower and look at 100 different penises in the communal shower, or people who have a penis that would like to shower with people with 100 vaginas and call themselves a female in a shower, we're not ready. We don't have the discipline. We're not in shape. And you can't have a draft here because those people, some 20 to 30 American veterans who commit suicide every day, and the thousands of vets who are angry that they don't get their benefits from the VA, which allows thousands of people to die. Last year, the year before last, my god sister's brother had shrapnel in his body from a landmine in Vietnam that they never told him about. He had it there for 52 years. That's when he learned he had shrapnel in his body. He learned 52 years later that he had malaria that had never been treated for 50 years. The VA never told him. All these people who've had these experiences with the VA and with the vaccines that they forced on soldiers, our army has been harmed by the jabs and the other things. They're not ready to go up against the Russians. They don't want to be in sub-zero weather. They don't want to have to do that. We ain't up to it, guys. And Biden, with that ugly Secretary of Defense, the one that looks like Florida from Good Times got a sex change, is a trans man, Austin. He's a disaster. He's the worst we've ever had. They would put an incompetent black man in when they wanted to destroy the U.S. Army, to shame all the black servicemen and women who served this country when this country never gave a damn about them. And they did it well, and then they put this spaz up there. Do you really think that people are going to want to surrender to American soldiers? Do you really think that people are going to want to be captured by people who will probably go into battle carrying rainbow flags? Ask yourselves, if you don't see the double jeopardy, can America afford a war? And if America has a war with Russia, which is allied with China, what will that do to the dollar? These BRIC nations are sick of the dollar. Nations around the world are saying they'll drop the dollar. Part of it is they're sick of America's wars. Will Biden be stuck on stupid? Has he figured out that the BRICS countries are serious? Do they realize that people don't want this system anymore? They don't have to fire a rocket. More countries or more empires have fallen because of economic collapse than due to warfare. America can't pay its debts. American students can't pay their debts. Our housing market, the only thing that was driving the economy forward, is at a standstill. And we're talking about a war. We don't have the factories. We don't have the manpower. We don't have the national will. We don't even have the damn leadership. Brothers and sisters, I'm open for questions.
All right, you got a couple here already, Dr. Short. Dr. Short, would you explain how the Ukraine conflict fits in with the Khazaria and the Turk and the Russian tribes?
No, I'm not going to do that, other than to say to you that Ukraine would have been part of ancient Khazaria, and Khazarians live there. That's one. Turks and all these people, how they differentiate themselves by language or whatever, there's some kind of offshoot or they're in relationship to each other. They're Indo-European type folks with shared things, but they're not exactly the same. The Turks are the Seljuk Turks, come from a part of Central Asia. They're similar, but not the same. There are different types of these people that lived in Central Asia and in the steppe. People who are Indo-European, people who've been dealing with each other but have different national identities. Ukrainians are a Slavic people. Their language grouping is different from the Turks. The Russians and the Ukrainians are similar. Their languages are slightly different. It's the same people.
Dr. Short, are we going into a new age like what happened after World War II?
Well, everything has to change. I don't know if it's a new age, but something has to give. The rule of American fiat currency, the American military, this abbreviated American century, because it hasn't been a full 100 years, unless you want to say the American century started with the end of the First World War, when most people say it started at the end of the Second World War. Well, 1945, let me see, actually, 1945 is what? 78 years ago. You need 2 more years for there to be 80. So if we're going to have an American century, we need another 22 years, and I don't think we'll have an American century. So I think that America's warmongering is going to bring about its dominance to end faster than what would have happened had they been more oriented towards peace. So I think it's going to change. Demographically, it's got to change. So look, let me just help you out. Have you seen what's happening in the Supreme Court, where the white folk in Alabama, I mean, it's happening here in America. There are more black people here than what they want to say. They want to say we're always 10% or 13%. I mean, they've changed categories to make our numbers smaller, like this biracial, which is about 9-10 million people. If you put that with black folks, you're talking about 50 plus million people are black, but you split that off, right? I have people I know who can pass, people like Rock Newman, like distant relatives probably, who you couldn't even tell they're black. They were black. Now, all of a sudden, the person that you can't tell is black with the white mom is biracial is in a category different from Rock Newman, who you couldn't tell is black unless he told you. This kind of foolish bullshit that these people are running. And they're even bringing in people from Africa. They're Ethiopians and Sudanese who have white on their passport. They have to say they're white to get in here. I have an associate who's Egyptian, who's put in a mental hospital for 10 years for denying being white when he's darker than me. They're trying to hold on to this, what's called by this writer, Rediger, Herrenvolk democracy, or the master race democracy. You're trying to have a white majority, but if you want a white majority, why not make love instead of drag queens and trans? Why not let people love? Why not give people income so they can have families? Why push abortion? Why push sodomy? Why push feminism? Why push all this incel madness? And on top of that, the people who could have kids, you want to lock up the black men that don't mind busting out babies. You're destroying the population, but in particular, you're trying to save your own. And that's not going to work. So how white is America? I don't know. They want you to think it's 75% white. It doesn't look that way unless you're in someplace like West Virginia. Have you been to Atlanta lately? Have you been to New York lately, except for the super rich areas with a price where you can't be there? Have you been to Chicago lately? Have you been to St. Louis lately? Have you been to Houston lately? You been to LA lately? Been to Oakland lately? Been around the country? This country isn't like bordering 80% white. I don't care who told you. It isn't. It's never been. But this is people's need to believe that this empire based on the lie of whiteness is going to last forever. It really can't. It really can't. Back to Alabama, you didn't see that the white supremacists in the Republican Party want to only have one black representative in Alabama when black folks are 25 to 30% of the population in Alabama, meaning that 2 of the Congress people should be black down there. Hello? And they've done everything they could to make so there'd be like 6 white ones and 1 black one, which doesn't match how things are. We're talking about representative and participatory democracy, and they don't believe in it when the numbers don't favor them, right? It's not just Alabama. You know, in Louisiana's a third black. They've got about 6 or 7, maybe 7 Congress people. Shouldn't 2 of them be black? Shouldn't they? Not just the one from New Orleans. Baton Rouge has a huge number of there are black folks all over Louisiana, and a whole bunch of folks that don't look black that are. Louisiana's a third black. South Carolina is at least 25% black. Don't you realize that South Carolina should have another black congressperson other than sorry ass Clyburn? Did you know in the state of Virginia, so many blacks have felony convictions? If they were able to vote, that would be close to 600,000 black voters. That's almost an entire congressional district, which means that you've got two blacks from Congress in Virginia. Maybe you should have three. You've got two Congress people from Maryland. Perhaps there should be three, which means the population's bigger than. And at Georgia, you've got four. I think you got four. You got McBath, you got that Hank Johnson, you got the other Negro, and you got the little ugly broad that looks like a geriatric cat woman with all the eyeliner she uses that replaced John Lewis. And there's one other one. They've got five from Georgia. They probably should have 6 or 7 from Georgia. But that would let you know, my God, these people, like if you look at the population study, they'll tell you blacks are 25% of the state of Georgia's population, and it's projected to just stay 25%. And everybody knows folks moving to Georgia from all over the country, black, and yet the population always stays at 25%. Do you really believe them? Like folks believe the jab shit? Go ahead, enjoy your busted testicles and everything else, whatever comes out of it. You know, whatever happens, it's your business, right? Believe these people. Believe that folks don't lie. Believe that all black women want to be like Sexy Red. Believe that black men all want to be like Billy Porter. Believe that we like all this stuff. Believe that we don't want reparations. Believe that we like open borders. Believe that we are intersectional and we want to help everybody and ourselves last, which is what you're being told. We need to stop letting people that hate us tell us what to think. So in America, things are changing. At some point, look at what they're doing. They've got 2 Indians running. Actually, you've got 3 non-white people running for the Republican nomination at one time. That's insane. Wait a minute. I left out Lee Elder. 4. They could all be coons. It's still, that doesn't look like the Republican Party stuff we've ever seen. 4? No. And that's in the Republican stuff. You've got on the Democratic side, you've got this sloppy ass Cornel West who's never had a haircut, who making interracial babies running for president. You got a Turkish dude that's not even from this country that gives white people more hell than Roland Martin and all the other black journalists put together. He's running for president that bitches about killer cops. This country's changing whether people like this or not. So wait a minute. You've got 3 black senators, and if it works out in Maryland, you're going to have another black senator. You're going to have 4. And if things keep going, there's going to be 5. Something, not that it means we have power. That's not what it means. The presence, you can't ignore it. I remember when you didn't see black people on television. It wasn't economically viable to have blacks in commercials. You couldn't do that. Oh, don't put a black on the cover. Your magazine won't sell. Now you can put black everywhere. You have a black drag queen beat a mayor for him to get votes. As much as I don't like that, my God. People's favorite president is a degenerate black man named Obama. No matter how much I can't stand him, people love him. They think he's Jesus. Stuff's changing. You've got people on YouTube and Instagram. You've got people admitting that they're not white. The Native Americans within the last 2 weeks, the Creeks have had to admit that these black folks are part of their tribe. This fight's been going on since the 1860s. Not that everything's changing all at once, but it can't stay the same. Everything must change. Look at black folks in Chicago, Rasmussen poll. 50% of black folks are looking to vote for Trump next year. There's never been anything like this in any of our damn lives. Let some more bad shit happen and it gets to 60%. I don't even know how they're going to, if they steal the election or whatever, I don't even know how they're going to justify with everybody mad at this geriatric freak that we have as a president. How? You've never seen a Speaker of the House kicked out before. You had a white gentleman who said that he was like a white Nazi Klansman get denied the right to be Speaker of the House for the Republican Party. What the hell is going on? A white Republican woman said, hell no. A white woman fighting against a white person that said they're like a Klansman? They didn't want to be a part of it. Stuff has changed. It can't stay the same. You have a bald-headed, Butterfly McQueen-looking mayor of New York now mouthing off at the president at the border, that punk Negro, Adams. You got the mayor of Chicago who looks like a trans Barbara Jordan putting illegal migrants in exclusive white areas. No black politician's ever been this crazy. In a white area, is he crazy? Of course, in the white area, you have black people threatening black elected officials. In Chicago, the heart of black America. You have black men, over 50%, voting against a black woman to be mayor of Los Angeles. Trust me, you have black people that are not going to vote for a black woman senator when she runs to continue to hold the seat of Feinstein. All of this stuff is going on. All of this stuff is going on. You have a black Speaker of the House who's full of shit, but guess what? They're not going to help there be a Speaker of the House, which means we could have a shutdown. The government's going to close. They hate Jim Jordan so much until we're going to have the government not be funded. Can you imagine if Hamas and these people wait until the U.S. government closes to start firing their missiles? And do you think the people on those naval ships are going to want to fight and not get paid? Isn't that ridiculous for me to have? I mean, it's bad enough I'm at war and I don't get paid when people are trying to kill me. Do you realize how crazy that's going to be for the naval people's families? If anyone should get killed, and since the government's not in business, their body, who's going to ship the body back? Who's going to pay for it? Are you understanding me? All of this is something could happen, and the president's a sick man. If he should fall down and hit his head, oh, I thank you, Jesus. Oh, you're so good.
So,
he's so good. God. Oh my God! If Biden were to fall down the flight of steps, oh, hear my prayer, Lord Jesus. If Biden were to get really, really sick, that would make all kinds of stuff. Or if, like, he confused Zelensky's name with Vladimir Putin. Y'all didn't see that? What if you do get a new Speaker of the House and they immediately vote to impeach him? Or they say he's mentally not competent, even though he may beat that. But remember, Menendez has to step down. Let me ask you the question. You live in Jersey. Does the governor appoint the senator, or do the people have to vote for a special election for a senator?
It'll be the governor could put the person's name, but they'll have a special election. I know when Cory Booker took Lautenberg's seat, who died, his family was opposed to it. His family did not want Cory Booker to take that seat.
Well, we don't want to have Cory Booker. Now, look, let's just look at this. So do you think that they'll get a Republican senator if they had an election.
Yeah.
So do you realize if you put a Republican senator in, you now have a checkmate in the Senate? You no longer have a Democratic majority.
So, like Dr. Short said, you guys in the chat, uh, everything that we've been accustomed to is changing, and in particular to this Biden's double jeopardy.
And hold on, the double jeopardy. Remember, Sinema in Arizona is in rebellion against the Republicans. The one Manchin in West Virginia is considering being a Republican. You could have the Senate flip to be Republican and the House Republican at the same time against Biden. The people in West Virginia are angry about coal. They're angry about gas. They're angry about what Biden has done. There are a lot of people. On top of that senator, the no good one, the vegetable from your state of Pennsylvania. Fetterman. He's not well.
Yeah. They ran him after he had his stroke, and that just goes to show how bad the Democrats wanted to be in power. That he's not sick. He's not capable to hold that seat.
If he has another stroke or heart attack, if you have an election, Oz could get that. The people are not going to vote for another Democrat in Pennsylvania. They're going to lose the Senate. They can't hold it. Things are going to change, and it will change against Biden. Whoever wins, and you need to understand something, people. If one American dies as a hostage in the hands of the people from Hamas, every American that dies is bad news for Biden. If any American soldiers go into into Gaza and die, it's bad news for Biden. You know that Trump will be hitting them every day. They can add indictments, but it's not going to save them. We have a movement in this country. It's called Donald Trump's movement, whether you like it or not, whether you support it or not. Biden has no movement. He has a system. He has a cabal behind him. This country will never be the same after the election in 2024. Even if a Republican doesn't win, if the Democrats find some way to hold on to power, as angry as people are about the open borders, we're going to have major problems in this country. This will be the last, and this may be the first time that you have violence during elections in this country like other nations. If people do anything that people are suspect of. Understand something. The woman that could have won the election for governor in Arizona, and then all the machines stopped working in certain places, is running for the Senate. It's harder to fix the machines everywhere. That lady, a lake, is likely to make it. You're likely to see an upsurgence of MAGA. You're likely. You're seeing right-wing governments that are tired of the leftists in Europe and everywhere. People are tired of all this globalization stuff. On the other hand, and these people are tired of wars too, something's gonna break. I don't know where. I don't know how. I will tell you this, if anybody does anything to anybody that's like 9/11, now I'm speaking of Muslims or anyone that's connected in any way to Islam and so forth, the people in this country will flip on foreigners so hard. A lot of people have never been in a situation where they really just hate your guts because you're not white or you're not American. If you haven't experienced that, I want to say it to you, it's not a pleasant experience to be on the out. You need to understand that people are going to have to flee this country. They're going to get kicked out. You need to also understand that winter is coming. In the coming weeks, there will be more conflicts over food and resources among these 6 million illegal people in this country. The fact that Biden has promised medical care to these people when most people across the country have to renew their medical care either annually or biannually or every 3 years. Certain people in Texas and other places have been denied medical coverage, and yet they're going to give it to people in the country unlawfully. There's no way that this is not going to outrage people. Understand that. Also understand that there are other religious conflicts. The Hindu-Islamic thing is on in India. It could spread to America. For any of these Indian candidates to do too well in the national elections here could frighten Muslims. Someone like Vivek Ramaswamy could make someone feel like they don't want to live like they have in India and want to take a shot at dude or at Nikki Haley. Our houses of worship will never be quite the same. All you need is a fatwa for anyone that's supporting the slaughter of people in Gaza. If the Supreme Ayatollah said anyone that supports the massacre of innocents in Gaza should be attacked, then all the Shia will be out after people. Remember what happened to Salman Rushdie? Was that New York where they nearly stabbed him to death? All these years they were waiting. Don't ever forget that this religious conflict, my God can kick your God's ass, really does matter to people outside the stupid, bombed out, based out, fagged out, studded out, drugged out, obese out West. Other people, it still matters what you believe, what you call God. And if you offend people's religious leaders or their religion, they don't have a problem putting a blade in you. Let me remind you that America's military is now full of people who are of different faiths. Let me remind you that there have been attacks at Fort Hood and other places where people who were Muslim shot fellow American armed forces personnel over their religious sentiments. The fastest growing religion in this country is Islam. Get a clue, people. Shits are changing. Shits are changing.
With that, folks, we're not going to take any more questions. We're going to close out. I just want to say before Dr. Short gives his final thoughts, I just want to say thank you. We have reached our first goal, which was 1,000 subscribers. I appreciate every last one of you guys. And our next goal is to be 5,000 subscribers. So
we want 5,000, and we want people to support the channel. Send some, donate to the hard work that this brother and the other brothers do to get this stuff out here. We absolutely need your support. And brother, we need to remind them, next week I'll be going live. I'll be going live via Vimeo and of course via YouTube and StreamYard. You'll be able to see that. I'll be sending the information to our brother, the Angry Black Men's Book Club will ride. I have finally figured out how to get my my drives to unload my videos so I have space to record and save it. I definitely need, I want to thank the person that sent me a large donation. I need a new computer. I have half of what I need. I still need to get a few hundred more. I'm going to get a new Mac, an updated one, so we can be in the state of art. A 12-year-old Mac won't do. So I'm going to try to get one that is maybe 5 years old or 4 years old. I don't have to have the newest one. I want a refurb Mac so I can keep doing what I do. I want to thank the person that said, well, I'm going to send you a few. Send you. Yep, they sent me. Yes, they sent me some dollars. So I appreciate the dollars. They're used for our education, and we've been educating tonight, haven't we? And we didn't even really get to it because we have to do another one. But I hope if everybody likes this, I can't see the likes. How many likes you got, dude?
Hold on. Hold on 1 second. I could see 112 as of right now.
How many likes?
112.
That's wonderful. Now, brothers and sisters, y'all need to know that this brother's going to send me a gift so I can download. So bless him. I don't know what it's costing him, but I thank him for what he's going to do. So my main thing is I've done a lot of content, and y'all wouldn't believe it. A lot of the content I had got basically seized by YouTube. In fact, they seize stuff, take it off, destroy it. And I'm thinking, I'm not preaching hate or violence or anything, just talk to people. They didn't want people to have this.
Dr. Short, quick question. One of the supporters of the channel said y'all going live tonight later.
No, I think you sound like you're sleepy, aren't you?
We might be back.
What, you want to do some more? I'm down for doing some more. I want to do some more. I mean, and we could do a domestic thing, or we could do Africa, because I don't mind. But definitely, we need to do another one. But you know how to bless. I really do need people. In fact, I'm going to tell you what it is. I'm trying to put my hands on, with everything added, I'd like to get like 400, 450. Everyone, no one has to give it all, but someone just like gave me a chunk. It's like, oh, thank you. He had how much more? He says, I don't want to ask the same person. This is something that we all do. This is sort of like in church. You pass the hat. Everybody can send in a piece. If a couple of people came and ponied it up, a piece here, a piece there, a piece there, that way I can just get it. And I really would like to have that, even as a backup. And I absolutely want to do more of these. And I like long ones. I'll do long ones if y'all want to do a long one. We need to talk about Black leadership and traders again. I missed that subject, but we wanted to talk about all kinds of stuff. And we need to do that. So I'm at Dr. Randy Short, $sign Dr. Randy Short. If you can't remember that, I'm $sign Randy L. Short. I have three of them. But some people do one, some people forget. I don't know. They don't like the doctor. They think it's arrogant. So it's Randy L. Short or Dr. Randy Short. Or I do PayPal and Zelle, which is wrandyshort@gmail.com. And every little bit helps. It helps for the books. I want to thank the people that sent me. I got all these drives to unload my phones to get the stuff off old shows, which I'm going to put up. I have a couple of people like when I had the prison uniform, and we're going to do some comedy. I need to do something stupid. I haven't done anything stupid in a long time. So I want a feminist personality, one that says all kinds of stuff that needs to be said. But back us up and understand we're going to be looking at partnering. If you have a channel and you like to do the stuff we do, you should be in touch with Brother Q. He's heading up our grassroots outreach because we want to have a larger network of people. This stuff needs to be going on 24 hours a day. I don't want to be the only one that does it. My dream initially was to produce, to help people like Q do shows. And Q will tell you, say, hey, man, you should interview this person, get that person. This person just wrote a book. I worked in television. I understand the whole thing of producing and getting people together. I don't necessarily want to be the speaker. it gets boring. It really does get old. And even if you do it well, I don't know how people do it for 20, 30 years. But we want your support. You can Zell me at wrandyshort at gmail.com, or you can PayPal me, which is wrandyshort at gmail.com. You can email me if you have serious, intelligent questions at wrandyshort at gmail.com as well. The website is Angry Black Men's Book Club. That's already up. The Patreon, which is Dr. Randy Short. I have about 6 people. It would be wonderful to have 100 people, even if they did like $2. But in fact, maybe 1,000, maybe 1,000 at a buck a piece, whatever. But Dr. Randy Short, I'm in Patreon. My Facebook accounts, they've been messing with me, y'all. So, but I am in Instagram. We will be doing more. We're going to be doing a lot more. And I love doing stuff where we talk about history and facts. It's a major thing. In fact, we will be doing that. And just because I launched my channel doesn't mean that I'm ditching Brother Q here. Some of us want unity. Some of us want community. I like this. He has no idea how much I loved Gil Noble, man. I love Gil Noble. God, I love Gil Noble. I'm so sorry Gil Noble's dead. That's one of my favorite people. And he's like a young Gil Noble, so it's fun working with them. And of course, bless us. Yes, we begging for that money. Send us a piece. And it doesn't have to be that much. I want to also tell you there's a website called Backpack, BACPAC. Backpack, that is mine, the Black American Constitutional Political Action Committee. Literally last night, I got a call from Las Vegas because they're trying to steal a black man's farm in Georgia, and they want to kill him and take his land. And I says, dude, how am I going to do that for free? I mean, so you have people who have money that are after you. I says, tell your guy to send us some documents and let's talk about what he'll pay us to represent him. Are y'all understanding me? People want us to fight affluent white people because we don't like bullshit, instead of the fact that we had the funding and the resources to do it. A lot of what's wrong with our people is that we don't put our money on people that would do something for us. We think they actually think the freedom struggle is charity. No, it's a war. If you're not financed, you're not fighting. You can't fight without finance. As I told you, this isn't charity. These rich, powerful white folks are going to come after us if we stop them from stealing his land. At least we should be able to buy a damn burger and fries. And I says, and I'm not going to sit on the phone and let him tell me how bad life is. I know it's bad. It's bad for everybody. I says, the minute we get on the phone, I'm consulting. I'm working for him. Okay, and he's working my nerves and everything else and picking my brain for what I can do for him. That's not free. And so, a lot of folks take this internet for granted. It used to be you couldn't get information like this, my friends. You used to not be able to find it. Now people get it and they think, well, because they're not being charged for it, it's, they can't get it. But I'll tell you, this is going to Vimeo, and eventually it's going to Patreon. And eventually some of the stuff I do, it will be like these classes. It'll be like, patrons only. But as I said, I do want people to know. But while we're doing this, because it's a test, other people are strong because they have strong institutions that help make stronger people. As long as we don't invest on those who invest in us, we say we're not worth it. How long are black folks going to be chicken shit people? We're not the only ones that know this about us. The people that do the payday loans, the people that know how to steal the air property, the people that did the subprime loans, a lot of people have studied our weaknesses. We got to be stronger. And part of stronging is being stronger is supporting people that inform you. I'm not going to say any more. You know that Let's Talk, L Talk 5600 is for this brother here. And you know the $ Dr. Randy Short is me, or Randy L. Short is me, or W. Randy Short at gmail.com is me for Zelle or PayPal. Hit us up. We've done a good 3.5 hours. And my God, we didn't even do much cussing. Should we do more cussing? Send us a message. I'm joking. We don't have to do any
Nah,
cussing.
honest, you guys. Bruce, I know a couple people in the chat asking us if we're gonna do a show later. There's a possibility we may come back. I got something I gotta do real quick, and
Yeah, well,
hopefully,
treat me white. Let me know what you're thinking, and yeah, tell them you'll come back if they send some donations. That's what you should say. We should be like other people are, but you know, we'll see. We'll see. It's I'm open, but man, y'all, please don't vote for Biden. If
I just
nothing comes out of this, don't vote for Biden again. Vote for anybody. Vote for Yosemite Sam. Vote for Scooby Doo. Man, vote for Broomhilda. Vote for Conan the Barbarian, Mickey Mouse, Minnie Mouse. In fact, vote for RuPaul. I mean, or vote for anybody but this demented man who's going to get us in a major nuclear war. Damn. I mean, why can't people see this? A nuclear religious war. Damn. I mean, I'm sorry, you can't fuck up this badly by accident. What an evil man. Let me get off here so you can do what you got to do. Y'all know how to bless us. You know how to like and share this. Biden's not shit. He never was shit. I'm going to keep saying that. You want to repent for voting for Biden? Don't vote for him again. God will forgive you. I'm going to sign off.